good. I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners regular meeting for Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 to order. Clerk, can we please have roll call?
9 present, 3 absent.
9 present, 3 absent. Please note Commissioner Frederickson, Commissioner Fisher, and Commissioner Shea are absent from tonight's meeting. Next, can we move to the prayer and the pledge? Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners. Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bowl. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
Okay, next we'll move on to the approval of minutes for the May 1st, 2024 regular meeting. Commissioner Thatcher.
At this time, I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 1st, 2024.
We have a motion and a second approving the minutes for May 1st, 2024. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea, 0 nay.
9 yeas, 0 nay. Motion passes. We don't have any items that are not addressed on tonight's agenda, so I'll move on to the Chief Executive's report. Just want to recognize it is National Police Week, and so I just want to recognize our police force for the work that they do every single day in protecting us. Next, I want to move on to congratulations to the Montana Tech Athletic Department, who has won the Bandy Award again for the second straight year. And then also we have a lot of sports teams here locally that are heading off to divisionals and states. So good luck to the Butte High boys baseball team as they head to state. The Butte High and Butte Central divisional track meet is this weekend. Butte High and Butte Central tennis team is also playing this weekend at the divisional tournaments, and then I believe our girls softball at both Central and Butte High are finishing up their seasons looking to get an advancement to the state tournament. So good luck to all those teams as they are working towards state championships or getting to state. So anyhow, with that, I'm going to close the the Chief Executive's report, and we're going to move on. I think we're going to have a pretty full agenda tonight, so we're going to move on to any public comment on any items on the agenda tonight. If you'd like to speak on any item on the agenda, please come forward, state your name, address, and what you would like to speak to us about tonight.
Hi, my name is Bill Foley. I'm 804 Zerelda Street. I'm speaking tonight on Communication 2004-214. Tonight, Eric Hassler of Butte-Silver Bow and Josh Bryson of British Petroleum / ARCO will make a presentation that I believe will include an update on the repository site for dumping from cleanup work in the consent decree. I'm fearful they are still eyeing dumping near homes in Centerville. I say fearful because we don't know. Despite claims of transparency by Butte-Silver Bow, the public continues to be left in the dark on this matter. I also believe it to be highly inappropriate for a county employee to give a joint presentation with a corporation about a plan resulting from secret meetings. Well, the repository site committee did hold a meeting on March 28th, but they only allowed us to view it through Microsoft Teams. Of course, that's technology a lot of people in our community still don't know what it is. It's kind of a mystery to a lot of people. That meeting was hard to understand. The meeting was best described as being on the wrong end of a butt dial from a tap room. But I did appreciate Mr. Hassler clarifying that a representative of DEQ, it was a representative of DEQ who mocked the people of Butte for asking for transparency during the meeting. One thing we did hear clearly is Mr. Hassler suggesting that Centerville residents are split on the subject. He even offered to bring land back into play that ARCO had previously said was off limits. I can assure you that the people of Centerville are not split on dumping toxic waste near their homes. Every single Centerville resident that I've spoken to has been adamantly opposed to the idea. I don't know of anyone who would want toxic waste across the street. I appreciate the efforts to find a location for the wastes. I know it's not easy. But twice now we've had to have a public uprising to try to stop dumping in a neighborhood in town. That is a problem. The answer to that problem, I believe, is openness. A chief executive should embrace openness and transparency for every public meeting. That is what I would like to see moving forward. People should not have to beg their government to keep toxic waste out of their neighborhood. Yet, here we are again. So in closing, I just would like to encourage this body to exercise its policy-setting role and revisit the transparency resolution, because hollow promises to follow the intent have flat failed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. And do we have any other public comment on tonight's agenda? Please step forward, state your name, address, and what you'd speak to us about tonight.
My name's Matthew Saylor. I reside at 15 East Center Street. I'm just going to read off the paper because I'll do a lot better that way. My name is Matthew Saylor. I reside at 15 East Center Street. I'm the current president of the Butte-Silver Police Protective Association, represents members of the police, detention facility, and dispatch. This is my third year in this position. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak and offer some comments on the PSA contract between Butte-Silver and Danette Gleason. However, I first want to inform you of how I got to this position. The day prior to this agreement being signed, I hadn't had any serious interactions with the local labor organizations within the county except for the occasional conversation with the Butte firefighter local. The weeks after this contract was signed, my phone was exhausted. I received texts, phone calls, and emails from my own membership. It continued to those who work on repairing your roads, keeping your drinking water safe, providing the mechanical services necessary to complete those tasks, and the ever-present emergency services. Some of these calls were angry and some were hurt, but none of them were happy about this decision. One of the statements I heard repeated over and over again was, "This just seems wrong." Like most things I experience professionally, when it seems wrong, it's very likely also illegal. I was advised by an independent consultant who worked previously for a city that the action taken by Butte-Silver in this contract violated MCA 2-2-201. I reviewed the statute as two separate portions. First, the very title, Public Officers, Employees, and Former Employees Not to Have Interest in Contracts. I felt this was pretty self-explanatory, but since it's written by lawyers, you can never be too sure. The first sentence reads, members of the legislature, state, county, city, town, or township officers, or any deputies or employees of an enumerated governmental entity may not be interested in any contract made by them in their official capacity or by any body, agency, or board of which they are members or employees if they are directly involved with the contract. And looking at the contract, it is obvious it was negotiated prior to Ms. Gleason's departure from the county on March 29th, 2024. The contract was prepared by former County Attorney Eileen Joyce, who retired the same day as Gleason. Being that the Monday after March 29th was the day following Easter and a county holiday, it would stand that only Tuesday and Wednesday were working days. Unless I am wrong, and Ms. Joyce came back 2 days after resigning to prepare the contract, it was negotiated and prepared prior to either Ms. Gleason or Ms. Joyce resigning. It would stand to reason then that this contract was made by Ms. Gleason in her official capacity over matters she was directly involved in. The second portion of the statute states a former employee may not, within 6 months following the termination of employment, contract or be employed by an employer who contracts with the state that any of its subdivisions involving matters with which the former employee was directly involved during employment. The contract outlines several responsibilities with which Ms. Gleason would be tasked under the agreement. All of these seems to be responsibilities that she held in her former position. Foremost, if training and assisting the budget and finance staff is not the responsibility of that department's head, whose responsibility is it? If we knew she was retiring for several months and she couldn't complete that training in that time, why are we to believe she will now timely and cost-effectively complete that training? Another section of the agreement calls to assist and train staff in the preparation of the year-end financial report. The opening letter of the annual financial report contains a summary of the finances and is signed by Ms. Gleason, showing she did have direct involvement with this task, again violating the statute.
Mr. Saylor, I'm sorry, we only allow 3 minutes, so
Can I just finish my last paragraph?
go ahead. I'll give you about 15 more seconds. And
Okay.
then we'll
I want to touch base on Ms. Gleason's comments today that inferred the local labor unions of Butte-Silver are somehow just trying to get more money. For years, we have done more with less. Your officers are among the lowest compensated in the state for departments of their size. Even with our requested increase, we still would be. We want a fair wage, not something crazy like $150 an hour. We want this so that I don't have to leave this meeting and go to the jail tonight on my day off and work from midnight to 6 a.m. So the detention officer who has already worked 12 hours today isn't stuck for a total of 18 hours
Mr.
before
Saylor,
reporting back for
I'm
12,
gonna-
possibly
I'm
18.
going to have to stop you. Thank you very much.
My name is Trudy Healy. I live at 111 West Iron Street. I'm just going to finish his sentence. To be honest, I'm not doing this because I'm money hungry. I'm doing it because it is the right thing to do. I'm hoping you all do the right thing too. Sincerely, Matthew Saylor, President of BPPA.
Thank you.
Yes, my name's Randy Merkich, and I live at 131 East Center Street in Centerville. I'd really like for you guys to reconsider if you're going to dump up there, don't dump up there. There was a petition signed by over 100 people, not just from Centerville, not from Walkerville, citywide, not to do this. It was handed to you folks. You folks read it. I don't know if you understood it or not, but it was there. Don't dump up there, please. The wind blows 100 miles an hour up there. Mr. Gallagher was up there with me. He knows how bad it is. When they're dumping this dirt, it's going to blow into our homes. It's going to contaminate it. It's hazardous waste. I don't care what anybody says. It's hazardous waste. Don't dump hazardous waste in neighborhoods in any part of the city of Butte. Please don't do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merkich. Is there any other public comment on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. First public hearing, we have communication number 2024-205, Angie Mulligan, Public Works Grant Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence to schedule a public hearing on May 15, 2024, for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget to allow for increased expenditures of an unanticipated revenue regarding the National Arbor Day Foundation grant. Ms. Mulligan.
This public hearing is for unanticipated revenues for a grant received from the National Arbor Day Foundation for the Stodden Park Hazardous Tree Abatement and Sustainable Urban Reforestation Project. This is a 5-year grant to be used for the removal of 175 hazardous cottonwood trees in Stodden Park. The grant also allows for the purchase of 250 trees to replace the trees that are removed. The total amount of grant funds to be received is $145,250.
Do commissioners have any questions? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. First call for proponents. Second call for proponents. Third and final call for proponents. Next, we'll move to opponents. First call for opponents. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. We'll close the public hearing. Next, we'll move on to bid openings. We have communication number 2024-213, Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence for the opening of proposals for the 2023-2024 Economic Development Mill Levy Funds on May 15, 2024. County Attorney Fyvie, did we need a proof of publication on this?
Chief Executive Gallagher, we did have proof of publication for communication number 2024-213. And just to back you up, we also had proof of publication for communication 2024-205 that we just heard.
Thank you very much, County Attorney Fyvie. Thanks for that correction. So, Director Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, members of council. I'm Karen Burns, Director of Community Development for Butte-Silver. These ED mill levy proposals were due on May 1st, and they will be read out loud. They were submitted electronically, and there will be scheduled presentations at the ED subcommittee on May 22nd of these proposals. So I'll just go ahead and read who submitted and the dollar amount that they submitted for. There was 9 proposals. Actually, I think, was there 2 for? I'm going to look at Barb. Okay, so there was 8 proposals. There's a duplicate on my list. I apologize. So there was 8 proposals. The first one was from a company that I may mangle their name, but I'm going to say Yiftee. It's Yiftee. And that proposal was requesting $65,000. The second proposal was from Copper City Softball. They're requesting $15,000. Advantage Butte is requesting $30,000. The Butte Center for Performing Arts is requesting $8,200. The Montana Gaelic Cultural Society is requesting $7,000. The Butte Amateur Hockey Association is requesting $7,500. The World Museum of Mining is requesting $8,000. And the Montana Folk Festival is requesting $15,000.
Thank you, Director Burns. Are there any questions for Director Burns from commissioners? Seeing none, we will, Commissioner Thatcher.
I believe I have to make a motion, right?
Yep.
Okay, at this time, I would like to make a motion to refer the mill levy proposals back to the Economic Development Committee to hear and review their presentations on May 22nd.
We have a motion and a second to refer back to the Economic Development Team on communication number 2024-213. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I just wanted to clarify the amount for the amount available. The economic, I should know that.
Commissioner
I'm on the
O'Neill,
committee,
Commissioner Thatcher, do you have
but I
a
wanted
total
that
on
on
that?
record, how much it is.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I want to say it's right around $67,000. Is that correct, Director Burns? I should probably know that as well, but I do believe it's right around $67,000.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? So we have a motion and a second to refer back to the Economic Development. Is there, would commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea, 0 nay.
We'll need it at the end of the meeting. Yeah. We have public comment at the end, so. Okay. Next, we'll move on to presentation. We have communication number 2024-214. Eric Hassler, Department of Reclamation, Environmental Services, and Josh Bryson, Liability Manager, Atlantic Ridgefield Company, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for a presentation on May 15th to provide a progress and update on remedial design and remedial action activities for Silver Bowl Creek Conservation Area. Director Hassler.
Mr. Chief Executive, members of the council, as you heard, my name is Eric Hassler. I'm the Director of the Department of Reclamation and Environmental Services. We're here tonight to discuss the progress in regards to the Repository Siding Committee and the remedial design and remedial action progress for the Silver Bow Creek corridor projects that are underneath the CD. I'd like to start off by addressing a few of the comments. Atlantic Ridgefield did did agree to removing one of the sections within the Kelly Mine area that you'll see within the presentation. But I'd like to let the body know that I have received correspondence from members in the neighborhood that would like to see the process unfold. We need to keep in mind that this Repository Siding Committee was the first step in a long process of determining where is feasible for this waste. There is still several types of evaluations that need to be done to determine that if the area is feasible, all the areas that you'll see within the report tonight, they've got to be technically feasible, scientifically feasible, and legally feasible. So this is the first step in the correspondence I received. It was just to not stop the process at the very beginning stages. So I'd like to clarify that at this point in time. And with that said, I'd like to introduce Josh Bryson with the Atlantic Ridgefield Company. I will be here to answer any questions that the body has at post-presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hassler. Welcome, Josh.
Good evening, Chief Executive Gallagher, Council Commissioners. As Eric said, my name is Josh Bryson, Liability Manager representing Atlantic Ridgefield Company. As you know, Justin Price died last month in a helicopter crash performing remedial activities in Anaconda. Our team is deeply saddened by his loss, and our thoughts and condolences go out to his wife, his young children, his family, his friends, and his coworkers. We appreciate your understanding and allowing us to reschedule our presentation to tonight. As Eric mentioned tonight, I'll focus my presentation on the repository siting study and then progress that we've made in the remedial design and remedial actions. And afterward, Eric and I will both field your questions. So we were finally able to submit the final site screening report on May 1st, and that concluded the first 4 steps in accordance with EPA's guidance provided in June 2020. That report summarizes the efforts of the committee to date to identify, screen, and select locations for further evaluation for the disposable waste materials from the BIPSU corridor. EPA, in consultation with the EQ, provided their concurrence that that report had fulfilled steps 1 through 4 of the process. These locations recommended in the repository screening report will be submitted to further technical evaluation, legal evaluation, to determine their actual suitability for disposal of these wastes. The current locations that will be passed through to these evaluations in steps 5 and 6 include the Shields Avenue location, located there south of the Berkeley Pit, the Berkeley Pit itself, the Kelly Mine area, located on Atlantic Richfield and Butte-Silver property, immediately east of Foreman's Park, and the existing Butte Mine Waste Repository. Sorry for the small text. Performance of steps 5 and 6 will conclude the repository siting study. I consider step 5 really of technical nature, where we'll go in as engineers and scientists to investigate the site to determine its suitability to accept waste. Whereas step 6 is really the decision-making process of the EPA. This is where the settling defendants, Atlantic Richfield and Butte-Silver Bow, will submit our recommendations to the EPA for review and approval in consultation with DEQ. In step 5, those technical evaluations have already begun in planning. We'll implement a geotechnical investigation at Kelly Mine Area Repository location, subareas C and E, along the Hall Road that we intend to use, along the south ramp, and in areas of Shields Avenue. We're also in progress, just received approval today to perform additional site investigations at the project areas in the corridor. And there we'll work to perform additional characterization of materials in those areas, including evaluating whether or not those materials would be slurryable from the project areas to the Berkeley Pit. We're also performing a review of the suitability to place organic materials within the Berkeley Pit. We want to make sure that whatever we put in the Berkeley Pit is compatible with the chemistry that's already there. We don't want to impact the operations of the mine or the operations of the Butte mine flooding water treatment systems. What we feel will dictate which repository locations are recommended for use are what we refer to as waste acceptance criteria. Those waste acceptance criteria will tell us what materials, what waste we can put at any specific location and at what concentrations that may be suitable. We'll summarize those draft waste acceptance criteria in what we refer to as the materials management plan. The materials management plan is intended to address what we find at the end of every further remedial element scope of work document. And what in that final section, there's 11 or 12 bullets that are referred to as additional project requirements and information to be addressed in remedial design. So what we've done with the materials management plan is consolidate those requirements into one spot so we could better manage them for all the projects. What they would call for is excavation and disposal analysis. In that case, we have to go to the sites and determine how we're going to excavate the materials and where those materials will be disposed of. It includes an effort to delineate the wastes at each project site, and to delineate those wastes, we utilize our pre-design investigations, the data obtained from that, and we import it into 3D models that provides a representation of the waste. We take that representation of the waste and transfer it to our construction plans for removal. And those removals are dictated by the excavation limits and extents, which are already defined in the further remedial element scopes of work. And in general, those are referred to as the 3-year high potentiometric surface, the groundwater surface. We have to dig down to it, and to the project extents, to the boundaries of the project areas. In all cases, we're being conservative in those removals and often going beyond the requirements of those removals. It also discussed waste management in the report. Within the waste management plans, we address how we're going to excavate, transport, and dispose of tailings, waste, and contaminated soils, of municipal waste, of hydrocarbon contaminant waste, and of contingency waste, or other wastes that are unanticipated. Tailings, waste, and contaminated soils are what you're most familiar with, the historic mine wastes that we often just simply refer to as waste, as defined by Table 1 in the waste identification criteria of the further remedial element scope of work. Municipal wastes are primarily located at Diggings East. At Diggings East, we anticipate that there are approximately 20,000 cubic yards of municipal waste that is interspersed with over 200,000 cubic yards of soil. We need to figure out a way to segregate those large pieces of debris and dispose of those appropriately, and determine how we're going to manage what we refer to as remnant or incidental municipal debris that is generally inert. It's plastics, chunks of glass, things like that. There are approximately 55,000 cubic yards of hydrocarbon impacted soils occurring between the Buffalo Gulch and Butte Reduction Works project sites. Initially, we felt that the most appropriate disposal location would be the Butte Mine Waste Repository, but with the potential of the Berkeley Pit, it may be possible to dispose of some of those soils in there, so long as they don't exceed acceptance criteria. And then there are the other wastes that were not expressly considered in the consent decree or freeze house. We intend to manage those as we encounter them during excavation. These other wastes could be things like a drum of used solvent, some that could be considered a hazardous waste. Asbestos-containing materials that are located within the construction debris disposed of at Diggings East, which isn't necessarily appropriate to dispose of at any of the repository locations. The materials management plan will also address the sampling and placement of imported fill material on site and of on-site reused material. Imported fill is material that we'll use to construct the sites that is brought into the project areas from outside of Butte generally. That can include topsoil, gravels, growth media, construction aggregates to build the site. The on-site reused materials are sites that would be salvaged from on-site that could include clean topsoil or backfill materials that meet tables 2 and 3 of the further remedial elements scope of work. Moving on to RDRA progress for design and construction phase. This is a representation of the 13 projects that make up the Silver Bow Creek Conservation Area. The green projects are in design phase, whereas the Caterpillar yellow projects are in construction or very, very early phases of construction. You'll see this covers everything from transport of the materials in a repository, which is of course contingent on the outcome of the repository siting study, all the way up through Diggins East and Buffalo Gulch. We recently submitted the 60% design of Diggins East. You'll see here that I have it indicated as being much further progressed than that because that design package is beyond 60%. It was beyond 60% when we submitted it, and we've been working on it since. Buffalo Gulch is quickly approaching 95%. We anticipate having that for internal review by the middle of June. And with each of these design packages, we hope to issue them to the EPA for review in August jointly. We get that done in August, and we're able to finalize those documents by the end of the year or early first quarter of 2025. We'll be on target to start construction on these two projects in May of 2025. The remaining projects, Grove Gulch, Casey Street Waterline, and Lexington Wetlands, those I consider all in progress. They all have 100% design documents. Grove Gulch I've got at 5% because we are working on pre-mobilization submittals, which includes plans for traffic control, dust control, transportation. Casey Street Waterline in the same general vicinity of progress. We are working with Butte-Silver County to make sure we're coordinating the work appropriately with Public Works. We are beginning to engage our landowners to make sure we have appropriate access agreements, and we hope to begin that work in late June or July. Lexington Wetlands, we're about 40% done on that work. I've been visiting the site a few times. It's starting to come together. What's important about that project is it's the first of all of our projects within the Silver Bow Creek Conservation Area. These two pictures are from last year, where we were beginning the initial construction of the outdoor classroom. It's advanced much further than this now. And the second is of this trail along the southern portion of the site that connects Lexington Avenue to the park space itself. With any luck, we'll be done with this project by late summer, and we'll have it open to the public by early fall. I think that concludes everything that I had for presentation. So appreciate your time. Another pitch for Butte Priority Soils, be at bipsu.com. We will be going live with our story map towards the end of the month to where people can go online and find pertinent information related to ongoing construction activities and potential impacts to roads, road closures, delays, mostly associated with Grove Gulch for now. So check out bipsu.com and keep everybody posted when that story map goes live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Are there any questions of Mr. Bryson from commissioners? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you guys for the presentation. Is there any way you could pull your map back up? One with all the colored one. So thank you. Kind of a couple questions here. So between the blue and the purple areas of where to dump the waste. My first question is, who owns them properties?
Commissioner O'Neill, Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioner O'Neill, the blue properties are predominantly owned by Atlantic Richfield. There's about 62 acres, and portions of, I believe it's Polygons C and E, are owned by Butte-Silver Bow. The Butte Mine Waste Repository is on Butte-Silver Bow property. Correct?
Thank you.
Follow Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. So if you were to, if you were to talk about what is toxic on them, how toxic would you guys rate them? And you don't have to rate them. You rate them however you want. I would guess, would you say, are they toxic or not toxic as they sit today? How could you explain that?
Commissioner O'Neill, Mr. Bryson.
Chief Executive, Commissioner O'Neill. I don't know the concentrations of the area, but one of the biggest plums, if you will, of that area is it has previously been impacted by historic mining. And I think one thing that we need to keep in mind throughout this process is it doesn't seem to make sense to impact an area that hasn't been previously impacted through past mining activities. There's no reclamation that has been implemented over any of the blue polygons. The purple polygon is still the active mine waste repository that does not have capacity for the wastes coming from the corridor projects. So apples to apples, I really couldn't tell you from the corridor waste to what is in place up there today. But I can say that remedy has not been implemented, and this is what is known as the historic mining landscape. And way before my time, or probably anybody sitting on this body, it was determined that that would be left in place is an educational tool, if you will, to show what the hill looked like previously. I'm not going to say it was a good decision, I'm not going to say it was a bad decision, but this would also allow us to implement further remedy over an area that remedy was not considered underneath the consent decree.
Thank you, Mr. Hassler. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I got a comment and a question. I do sit on the committee. I was at the last meeting, and I know there was a lot of steps that were taken to try to make it so everybody could hear it. The meeting was stalled at times when we were making sure that everybody could hear it and ask questions and whatever. So I kind of take offense to some of this when they said we're still having secret meetings, or we ever had a secret meeting, because it was far from a secret meeting. Second question is, there's talk about, possibly dumping at the Kelly mine part, as part of it, of the organics. How far is that from any neighborhood houses where you're planning on, what's the distance?
Commissioner Sorge, Mr. Bryson.
Commissioner Sorge, Chief Executive. I've measured that distance. I believe I don't have it off the top of my head. It's somewhere between 75 and 125 yards. I could get back to you on that for an exact answer. To Polygon D, from the house closest to it on Center Street, I believe.
Thank you. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other, Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you. I got a couple things here. big part of my district is in the cleanup and all that, and it seemed like meetings will go back and all that. We were talking about the remedy of removing the soil and all that, and you mentioned the slurry process and all that, and I know it takes time. But the thing about it is that, here again, reaffirming it and all that stuff, is that Atlantic Richfield owes the people of Butte a good and proper job, and that's why Eric is there. And the people aren't going to stand for anything but. And I think we've been very lenient with the time factor and everything involved. So I think you guys are doing a good job. It's good to see some progress and all that. I know there's some work going on Montana Street there and all that. I'm not being critical. But I think all anybody wants to know, after a period of probably 15 or 20 years, is what exactly is going to happen here. And I think we got to come up to suffice to the people of Butte of exactly what's going on here after at least, let's cut it to 10 years. These people need to know what's going on here. And I know there's something going on. You see progress going on. But the biggest thing is removing that dirt. And that's the biggest thing that we got to give these people an answer for. So I seen your graph, the progress being made and all that. Kudos to you. And but I just think that we need to know. We have gentlemen, I've seen a couple of these people that have been numerous meetings since I started years ago that basically are presenting the same case. All they want to know what's going on, and they don't want this stuff around their houses. So it's pretty simple. So I'd like to thank you again and all that, but I think that would really help out your concerns a lot. We talked about slurry. We talked about removing it by truck, going through shield. They just need to know what's going on. And after 10 years, I think we should have an answer. So go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. Do you want Eric to answer? Eric,
yeah.
Director Hassler.
Chief Executive Commissioner Reardon, on that note, I'd like to remind this body and the general public that we do have our progress meetings that occur every other week on both sides of the remedy. We kind of have remedy split in half, if you will, right now. We have the residential component being operated on this half, and then we have the corridor project being implemented on that. So we have what is known as the UAO progress report, which covers all things RMAP that is readily available for the public to listen to. Granted, it is Teams. We've heard that there's some issues that not everybody can have it, but that's the venue that we have at our hands at this time. And also with the consent decree projects, which are the ones we're here to discuss tonight, the same meeting occurs. They're just offset weeks so that we're not inundating everybody with it, but they are open for anybody and everybody to listen to as long as through the Teams mechanism. And they're posted on bpsou.com.
Thank you, Director Hassler. Follow up, Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you. What time are these meetings conducted?
Commissioner Reardon, Director Hassler, or
Corridor
Ms.
projects is conducted the fourth Tuesday of every month, generally beginning at 9 o'clock in the morning.
9 o'clock in the morning, okay.
The UAO progress meeting is either usually at 10 o'clock in the morning or at 9 o'clock. They vary depending on everybody's availability, but I understand where you're going with this, but
right.
I will leave it at that. They're at 9 and they're at 10. So.
Thanks, Director Hassler. And those are, we do put those posted so that people know when those meetings are.
Chief Executive, correct. That they are posted on bpsou.com with the link to the meeting. So just click the link and be let in by the meeting organizer.
Thank you, Director Hassler. Commissioner O'Neill. Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Just a couple comments on regarding the subject of simplicity of where we're at. It has come a long way, and I don't have any affiliation with anyone on any side, but in simple, we have places we need to put all the stuff. Okay, it can only go in Silver Bow County, can't be moved anywhere else. So the only way to move the cleanup forward is we need to find a repository to put it there. So to keep it simple for the city of Butte, Montana, and all the residents, that's where we're at right now. I know there's a lot more to that, but if we don't find a place to put it or come with an agreement to put it, then it's just going to stay where it's at. We're not going to move forward. Okay, so that's pretty easy to understand. So my area is in the Diggins, right? Other than it taking my kid's dirt bike, place to ride his dirt bike, that's a big deal. So it's not just the hill that it's affecting, right? It's affecting all over town, right? It's got to go somewhere. You got to be able to cap it somewhere in town. And be honest with you, what a better place to put it in where a dump is, where there's places where the wind's blowing and already toxic waste it already is blowing. If we were to do that, it caps it, it fixes the problem, So these are some of the conversations that we need to have, like all these secret meeting things we're talking about. There's no secret meeting. Well, if there are, I don't know if there are. There. But in simplicity, as I repeat myself and get very frustrated about this, we need to try to work with each other instead of against each other so we can move forward. I would love for my kids to be able to see some of this progress where right now we're not getting anywhere. And again, in simple, we need to find a place to put all the mine waste so we can move forward so we can see it before I'm dead. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thanks, Eric. Thank Josh for coming and keeping us up to date on what's going on. Excuse me. That meeting they had in March, there was some things that were brought up that we haven't heard, starting with the south or the west end of Silverboat Creek with the dioxins coming from the pole plant. There was also stuff brought up about the PCPs probably coming from the storage yard from Northwestern Energy. Is that kind of stuff going to hold up this whole process? I know it's a different Superfund site. That's not your responsibility. But when the state came to us and told us their progress on that site, he said you're talking a decade before they have an answer on how to clean that up. Will we have to divide this into two different sites and do the upper end or the east end and do the west end at a different time? I know you'd like to do it all at the same time, but with those additional contaminants, is that going to, different Superfund site and mixing into yours, is that going to create a big issue?
Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Callahan. Butte Reduction Works is a complex site with complex contaminants on it. We were fully investigating the presence of those contaminants, and we found that there are dioxins present on the site in the groundwater. We've also determined recently that we have not found PCBs or PCPs in groundwater. We are adjacent to industrial areas. We are adjacent to an additional Superfund site. What we're most concerned about is how we manage water on the site, not necessarily the soils. So when we perform deep excavations at the site that are required to go 15 feet below groundwater, we fully anticipate having to install a sheet pile wall with an upstream capture system and treatment system to prevent migration of those contaminants. So we were thinking through those issues and how it may be best managed from a dewatering perspective and also from a soils disposal perspective. Unfortunately, we don't have all the answers yet. It's one of those projects that's coming into queue. And if I may speak to some of the comments regarding the process and the level of effort perhaps going into it. The Grove Gulch document submittal is over 3,000 pages long. That's one of 13 projects that our team is working on. One of 13 that have to be submitted to EPA for review and approval. These documents, these projects are complex, they're tedious, and believe me, the teams working on them and the support teams supporting us, doing the engineering, the design, the calculations, and the planning, have invested themselves fully in it. At one point last year, we had 75 local engineers and technicians working on these projects. We are investing an immense amount of resources to get these projects moving forward and to start them, the big ones, in May. And once we start them, everybody's going to be fully aware that this project is coming to an end.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. I'd like to just make a comment a little bit about some of the process that we've gone through. And We go back to sometimes when they talk about the repository up by Copper Mountain, and then, you know, that we had to stop that process. So based on that, we decided ourselves, local government, to create a repository study committee. There was a repository technical review committee prior to that, but we brought together commissioners, private citizens, and people that are able to look at this to help make recommendations to where the waste could possibly go. But we take that information from the technical review committee and digest that, and then we make our recommendations. But it takes that repository siting committee to be able to listen and find out the information before they can go to the public and give that out. There is a public process. The public process is continuing. I just want to push back a little bit on that. There's something hidden behind the curtain. There's nothing hidden behind the curtain. There's no secret meetings, and people keep doing that. And what's happening is that is stalling progress. Every time that we keep pushing back on this, we are not going to make progress. Every time it creates another roadblock along the way here. And so I caution what we do here. We are listening to people when they're talking about where they do not want that waste. Your voices are being heard. That is public process. Nothing has been cited yet. But we are going through the technical process to determine where the waste can go, and from there will be determinations from there. It's continued to have this narrative that's out there, and it's just false, that nothing's happening, that there's secret meetings happening, and they just are not happening. And so I just have to push back on that. I appreciate the work that goes in. It's unbelievable the amount of meetings and things that people have to sit through and go through and digest in these review meetings. And the ultimate decision maker where this is going to go is going to be the EPA. They're going to be the final decision maker in saying, yes, this is where it can go, or no, it cannot go there. So just understand there's a process that goes along with this whole, where it's going to be sited, how the waste is going to get there, but the final decision maker is going to be the EPA on that. So with that, is there any other questions from commissioners? All right. Thank you very much for your presentation tonight and the information. And go to bipsu.com for any more information that you'd like to know about the progress of BIPSU. All right. Moving on to Section 1, Communications, A 1 through 4 and B 1 through 38. Commissioner Thatcher, do we have any friendly amendments and or segregations? Commissioner Rudin.
Yes, I would like to segregate number 21, 20, 24-233.
That's item 21, communication number 2024-233. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you. I would like to segregate number 3, communication 2024-215.
That's item number 3, communication number 2024-215. Commissioner Anderson.
Excuse me. Thank you very much, Chief Executive. With 21 being segregated, I would also segregate number 5, 24-217. It goes with the same issue.
Okay.
It's the same issue at stake, that contract. So if one was segregated, they both should be.
Okay. Item number 5, communication number 2024-217. Is there any other friendly amendments and or segregations? Seeing none. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. At this time, I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, Section A 1 through 4 and B 1 through 38, with the exceptions of item number 3, communication number 2024-215, item number 5, communication number 2024-217, and item number 21, communication number 2024-233.
Second.
We have a motion and a second approving tonight's consent agenda. Is there anything on the question?
9.
Oh, we missed number 9.
I'll make an amendment to my, did we miss number
Oh,
9?
I don't know if it got didn't get segregated.
I don't think it was
I didn't write it down,
segregated.
so I didn't
It never
think
got
that-
segregated, so that's, okay. There's no, okay, okay, there was no segregation of item number 9. So we have a motion and a second approving tonight's consent agenda. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea, 0 nay.
9 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving to item number 3, communication number 2024-215, James Olet, ADA Coordinator, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to have Chief Executive Gallagher sign an agreement between WT Group LLC to provide a professional services estimate of $184,50 for the completion of the ADA Title II self-evaluation and transition plan. Who segregated that? Oh, Commissioner Callahan. Hi. Yes, sure. Yeah, so ADA Coordinator, Mr. Olet. Okay, just push the button on the bottom. So,
Thank you, Chief Executive.
yeah, so I believe Commissioner Callahan is just asking what the process was and how we came up with this number.
So
Am I correct?
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioner Callahan, we put out a RFP in March. We sent it out, we posted it online, we advertised it in the newspaper, and we got 2 response back. Karen Burns and I conducted an interview based on the criteria in the RFP, and we selected WT Group. They had the highest score. What was really impressive about them is that they did Helena's transition plan that we reviewed. So they're very familiar with Montana's weather and the area here. And so that's that.
Okay, follow-up, Commissioner Callahan.
Yeah, I guess my first question is,
I don't think your button's on.
sorry, thank you. My first question is, where do these funds come for this process?
That's beyond me.
I can, Commissioner Callahan, if you remember, as we were talking about some ADA stuff just a few weeks ago, this is a process that Butte-Silver Bow has to have. We have to update this transition plan for Butte-Silver Bow. There is some funds that we have available in a couple different pots that we can look at doing that. We have some of the money that was made available through the tribal, ARPA tribal monies that we had. That is available for us to do this, but it is a commitment that we have to have done, that we really don't have a choice to do that, but we do have a couple options of where we're going to look at that funding as well. And I think Director Burns may come forward and.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Callahan, members of council. The way that we are proposing to enter into this contract, it would not be in effect until after July 1st. So we would look at funding it out of the new budget to be adopted by this body. But working with the Chief Executive, we have identified some areas where we could pull these monies from to pay for this contract. In the RFP process, we did receive 2 proposals. We interviewed both firms that put those proposals in. And as Mr. Olet stated, by far the WT group, I always add the G extra group, WT definitely had the best experience in working in Montana, very familiar with working with cities of our size. They completed Helena's plan and in a very cost-effective way comparatively to the other RFP response we received, which was almost 4 times the cost to provide the exact same services. So we really feel like this is a really great opportunity for us to start this process and get this transition plan in place and the self-evaluation done. It's very important, as the Chief Executive stated and Mr. Olet, having this transition plan up to date and in place with the self-evaluation as part of that and of the other services really opens up our ability to continue to apply for federal funding on all levels and in all areas. Without the transition plan in place and adopted as part of what we do as a local government, it would hamper our ability to apply for additional funding from the federal government.
Thank you, Director Burns. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Hey, just question, so are we putting the cart before the horse, or planning to spend money before July 1st, or no? That just want to, no?
Commissioner O'Neill, Director Burns.
Thank you, Chief Executive and Commissioner O'Neill, members of council. We will not spend any money until after July 1st. We would like to take this time to get this approval process started so that we can start to enter into that contract, negotiate get it signed, but the actual work will not start until after July 1st, but we'd like to hit the ground running to take advantage of the summer months because much of this work has to be completed outside on our facilities. And a lot of that, the surveys and evaluations need to take place while the weather is good. It's an 18-month long process is what we're looking at. It's very extensive. It's very involved. It looks at every piece of public right-of-way. They measure, they use technology down to the centimeter for grades on our crossings. And so it's a very involved kind of project, but we would not kick off or spend any money till after July 1st, although we have identified some pots of funds that we have available, but to go through the budget process and amend the budget at this point in time would make no sense to do that, and so we thought we should start after July 1st, if that makes sense.
Follow-up, Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. So I get it that I guess this is how the process works, but we are truly putting money ahead now. We're saying, hey, we're gonna no matter what, and we do have to do this. I understand how important this is to do this to move forward, but we are saying, hey, we better. I sure hope we have $231 grand in the budget in July 1st because we're gonna sign this contract. We have to. We have no other options, right? So. The budgets, I hope you guys do have pots of money, right? Apparently you will, right? But we are proceeding, we're looking in the future, correct? I mean, I'm not trying to be rude here, but it's really, we're putting the cart before the horse in theory, but not really because we have to do it and it's a good thing, right?
So,
I mean, let's be truthful here.
Commissioner O'Neill, so it is committing ourselves to a contract that's going to be in the future budget that is put in there. We need to commit those funds, much like we do other obligations that we have. This is an obligation that we need to really move forward with, to have in place to get this transition plan done. So we could hold this up, but it could hold this up for a year to get this going again. And the transition plan has been, I think, was last updated in 1994. And so we are at risk of not doing that. So it could risk not having that ready to go and would subsequently push it back a year, although put into the budget for this coming year. Commissioner Callahan.
Okay, my question would be then, if we happen to deny this tonight, where would that put us?
That would put us where we would have to just push this contract out until we could go through the process and have it signed. So, Mr. Ouellette, if you'd like to speak to this.
Yeah, me and Karen have already been talking with them, so we're going to start being able to talk and communicate and project plan, because a lot of these are big projects, right? So they want to start hitting the ground running on July 1st once this contract. So we want all of these things set out ahead of time so that when July 1st comes and that they can actually fly in that week or the next week and they can start doing the boots on the ground work. But that also takes planning. They're a large consulting group, and so they're right now allocating different members of their staff and how they're going to split up their budget and timing. So this month is them planning ahead of time. So, and then our staff obviously with what my workflow is going to look like there, along with them. These couple months ahead of time are going to be extremely useful so that they don't get here in July and then we're like, okay, we'll push it back to September and October and then it's snowing. So we really have to really uphold. I know the commissioners, last time I was here, really made a big dedication for accessibility in this community. And here in our executive office, we do too. So we really hope that we uphold this commitment because this is a huge step for Butte-Silver Bow. And we don't want to find ourselves in situations again where the community feels like we don't care about people with disabilities, because that's far from the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Olet. I think Commissioner Thatcher had her hand up first, and then I'll go to Commissioner Fortune and then back to Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I do agree with James. Obviously, we've been put in positions prior that were unfortunate, and when we all sat up here 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we did discuss moving forward on this transition plan so that we don't have these issues arise again. As far as funding, though, I do have a question on the ARPA tribal funds. Is that the additional like $1.2 million that former Director Gleason found that we would have not gotten?
Commissioner Thatcher, that's correct. That's the $550,000 that was over a 2-year period that all counties got, that we originally did not get because we were city-county government, but then were later able to do that because of the work that was identified by Director Gleason.
Thank you.
So, Commissioner Fortune.
I think Josh is right here. Chief Executive, we're spending money we don't have, and now we're being kind of getting put in an awkward position that if we don't do it, we're against the ADA. And I don't think anybody here is against ADA or this plan, but we're setting ourselves up here for a contract that, I mean, we could get ourselves in a jam. I don't see what it would matter to hold and make sure we have the funds allocated. It seems like a smarter move for us. I mean, if the plan hasn't been done since 1999, what's another 60 days?
Thank you, Commissioner Fortune. To speak to that, we're at risk based on some of the things that we went through just recently on ADA. Moving it forward, we can push it off, but it could put absolutely some, not just grant monies, but ADA problems, potential lawsuits, things that we're not addressing ADA, and we haven't done this over the number of years. We've been using a transition plan that we've been submitting onto grants that say we have a transition plan, and we do have a transition plan that is so outdated that if they called us on it, we would really have a hard time defending what that would be since it's so outdated. But I mean, this body does have the right to deny this tonight. It is up to the body to make a decision whether you want to pass this forward or not. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I guess, excuse me, you're calling it a plan. I mean, once they come back with their plan, then what's the next step?
Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Olet.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Commissioner Callahan, that's a great question. So throughout the plan, they will be providing us with milestones. So some things during our internal review of policies and procedures, that can happen in-house, obviously with our county attorney and our chief executive and then our director of human resources, right? So they're going to be reviewing all services, programs, and activities. The big one that we're going to be probably talking about is facilities. So once they review our facilities, they're going to make recommendations on what needs to be corrected, how it's out of compliance, how much it's going to cost, and how long we can probably put that price range in. So say if it's something with a parking lot and it might be, $1,000 of an issue, they will kind of map out a plan for us on how we can pay that. And then we'll work with our Public Works Department and our Chief Executive and obviously the Council of Commissioners to decide on what that timeline is. So that plan has to go before council for intensive review and then obviously approval. Did that help answer?
It did. Follow up, Commissioner Callahan.
One last question. Facilities, is that all government properties, or what do you consider in facilities?
So,
Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Rolette.
all Butte-Silver Bow owned places that we offer public services in and that the public provides for. So anything under that Title II obligation. So public places of service.
Thank you, Mr. Rolette. And part of that transition plan is that there will be milestones that you have to be achieving. You got to be trying to make progress to it. It isn't, the transition plan will identify our issues, and we need to be making progress towards fixing those issues, but it's not identifying them all and we have to fix them within a year. That doesn't do it, but we have to be making progress towards completion of those. So Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. So when you say we're at risk, like we're at risk, like who's the person that comes in and goes around all these buildings and says, hey, where's your plan, and who's the person, and why haven't you done this since 1994? Like who's the guy or the person that does that?
Commissioner O'Neill and Mr. Rolette.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioner O'Neill. So right now, so as we know, the ADA is under the civil rights. So it would be a civil rights lawsuit. So someone would have to sue the county, and they would have to be taken to court, and then it would be decided by the judge. It's unlike OSHA, that we have like OSHA or OSHA inspectors coming in, or the Department of Labor coming in and inspecting work sites or our buildings. The ADA isn't structured like that. It would have to be taken to court. And so the U.S. attorney would reach out to us. They could file it. The federal government could sue us, or someone can directly sue us that we're saying that we are discriminating, but it's a civil rights law. And I would direct any questions about that to Ms. Fyvie.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. So help me here then. Since your job is the ADA coordinator at Butte-Silver Bow, why do we need this other transition piece to do this? Because this is just for our properties, correct? For
Yes.
Silver Bow owned properties.
Yeah, Commissioner, this is in statute.
Hold up one second. Commissioner O'Neill, Mr. Rolette, you're fine.
I'm sorry. Thank you, everyone, for their patience. Chief Executive, Commissioner O'Neill, thank you. This is in statute. It's required for all local governments over 50 employees of more to do a self-evaluation and a transition plan from that. That is part of the, so are you asking why we need a consultant and why I can't do it myself? Okay, that's a great question. I think that there's a lot of technical challenges towards this transition plan as the ADA coordinator. To implement a transition plan and to oversee one is along my guidelines, but to create one is not really within the scope of work that I have been assigned to. We also would like a third party to come in, because usually what in best practices when it comes to especially things involving civil rights, that when we have a third party group looking at our policies, programs, and facilities, they're going to be able to really give that unbiased opinion, right? Because we want to know at Butte-Silver Bow, what do we need to do? Now, I might not be able to do that if I'm afraid to come to the commission or my boss every day and say, hey, we need to spend $10,000 tomorrow. That might seem a little bit more legitimate if it does come from a third-party group who has a lawyer. So the head of the WT group, he is a lawyer. They have architects, they have engineers, they have accountants, they have all these people who are designed to help and assist us. We need to do it right. When it was done in 1993, we went about that approach. We said, oh, we can do it in-house. Went to Montana Tech, got an intern from the summer. They were supposed to do this project. That binder, everyone agreed on it. It got put in a drawer and it got put away. And we have learned 3 weeks ago, you guys, we sat here and we heard what that transition plan did for accessibility in Butte-Silver Bow. It did not do the work it was supposed to do. So now we're asking for a third party, and they have me and Chief Executive Gallagher and our whole team at Butte-Silver Bow holding them accountable so that we do create that accessibility, so that plan doesn't sit in that drawer again. And we can't keep pushing this off.
So I'll address that just a little bit too. Commissioner O'Neill, we don't have the capacity in Butte-Silver Bow with one person that's an ADA coordinator to be able to evaluate all the properties and do an assessment of the scale that is needed to do this. It just wouldn't, the plan itself would take forever to do, and we don't have the capacity within that. And like James did speak to, they have architects, they have engineers, they have lawyers that do this. So the plan is protected by that, and so it gets it done in a timely fashion. And so it makes, in truth, and Director Burns spoke to this, it also helps us in our availability to apply for grants. This thing could pay for itself easily over time, because having an updated transition plan makes it more readily available to go after federal grants. Commissioner Thatcher, you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I guess I'm a little unsure of why we think that this is different than any other professional service type thing or any other engineering service that's provided to the county. I mean, this is an essential thing that needs to be done. Kudos to James for getting us started on the process, but I mean, it's very important. As James said, we saw everybody here last week or a couple weeks ago, and I guess I was under the impression that we were going to do everything we can to get ourselves up to date, and this is the step in that right direction. So, I mean, I understand the question of funding. As Chief Executive Gallagher alluded to, we do have that funding that former Director Gleason found, and it could be used that way. So I don't necessarily think that that should be a concern. I understand it, but I guess to ease your concern, Commissioner O'Neill, would it be prudent, and maybe County Attorney Fyvie could answer this question, whether we approve this contingent on funding come July 1?
So Commissioner Thatcher, County Attorney Fyvie.
I can't speak for the other party, the WT group, that they would be willing to enter into a contract with a contingency. I mean, obviously, anytime you enter into a contract, you can negotiate its terms. I will say, people and entities contract all the time for monies to be paid at a future time. Personal people do it with mortgages, with cars. This county has also done it. If there's representations, I don't know the budget, but if there's representations that these funds are there and won't be paid till the next budget session, I guess for me, having sat through that meeting regarding the ramp and the commitment that Butte-Silver was going to take to update our transition plan, I don't know that you would want to go into a negotiation with a contingency that we may or may not have the money come July 1st, and we'd like to put you guys on the hook, but let's wait till later. Frankly, again, I can't speak for WT Group, but I think a contract that has its terms, it's black and white, and everybody is on the same page is probably a lot better than a contract with contingencies.
Thank you, County Attorney Fyvie. So let's go to Commissioner Anderson, and I'll come back over to Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Thank you very much, Mr. Ouellette and Ms. Burns, for your help in dissecting this matter, and you as well, County Attorney Fyvie. We as a group and a body the other day voted, which has been brought up numerous times, about the ramp with Top Deck across the street. There's very definitely a problem. There's very definitely a lot of people in our community. It is an aging community that do have issues with access. A few months ago, I had to help some people trying to get upstairs to second floor to pay their property tax. With the wheelchair, they had a very hard time getting into the courthouse and finding their way through. Even with everything set up, she was trying to walk up the front stairs, unaware that there was parking in the back. It took a few minutes to find the wheelchair and everything to get her set in and brought into the building. It is a problem for an awful lot of us citizens, you know. Sitting up here, all of us are very lucky to be able to move around and have our mobility, you know. some of us more so than others. I've lost mine numerous times in the last few years, as you're well aware of. This is monies that we don't have. We have it now, but amending the budgetary process, we have to have public hearings. We have to schedule those out. It's 1, 2, 3, it could take up to 60, 90 days to get all of that done. Or we can sign the contract now with the knowledge that the same pots of money that we would transfer now and set aside through a long and arduous process, bypass that. Which is a better way to go? I don't know. I do know that it would not be a 60-day wait. We won't pass the budget until that second week in August. And so that's another 4 months, 4+ months. And I'm sure that the WT group has done numerous things like this, where they start planning and come into some place with the expectation that the money will be there and on file. And so I have no concerns about that. It's something that we've done numerous times. We do have to spend money quite a bit of the time on a lot of issues we don't like. And unfortunately, this may be another one of them. I really hope that this will be put into practice, and I hope that this body, I know that I will be doing it, but I hope this body and others hold Mr. Ouellette's feet to the fire in a couple of years in making sure that a lot of these issues get done that are prescribed in this plan. There's been very many plans that I've seen over the last 14 years that have ended up like the last one in '94, put in a drawer someplace and forgotten about. There's been road plans that have never been pulled out of the drawer after the last 10 years, and numerous others. I can't even begin to count them. And a lot of times these do seem like a waste, but they give us crucial information and they give us valuable tools to get monies and apply for grants and everything else. Unfortunately, is it the best way to conduct business? No. Is it a good way to conduct business? I would again say no. Is it one of the hoops that we're required to jump through in order to get this business and to get this monies and to get the help to run the government that we need? The answer to that is unfortunately yes. So whereas I find these pills a little bit hard to swallow sometimes, you know, not all medicine is good. I took a bunch of my pills this morning and I was sick for a few hours. Unfortunately, it just is a necessary evil. Some of us would say, or maybe it's for a greater good. But with all that being said, I will end my rant by making a motion to concur and place this communication on file.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file. We do still have some more questions, so I think Commissioner Reardon.
I'm just going to make it nice and short. You've heard it all and all that. We have the money coming. We made the commitment to these people. Is it straight up poker? Probably not. But just think of the money that this county has saved over a period of time for not doing that was supposed to be done years ago. And I look around the room here and I see a lot of gray hair, including myself. And probably in another 10 or 15 or maybe even sooner, we're going to profit from this scenario. So I think it's a good deal, and I support it 100%. I'm a budget guy. You guys know me. But the thing about it is that we have to start someplace, and we promised a lot of people in this room that we were going to make it better. We have the money. Not yet. I agree. But the thing about it is we have the grant to pay for it. So you're a gambler. Fisher goes to Vegas and all that stuff, I guess, if you want to call it that. Maybe the procedure isn't right, but we have committed to this, and we have the money coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. Commissioner O'Neill,
Thank you,
Commissioner
Chief Ex-
Thatcher, and then back
Thank
to
you, Chief
Commissioner
Executive.
Callahan.
I just want to put on the record, listen, it's not that I'm not for this, okay? These are all questions, and we had a great conversation about it. So if anybody's offended by the questions, I don't care at all. However, I just want to know that the monies I just wanted to know, okay, where we're at, where we're going to get it. Finally, we have a pot of money. Fantastic. When we do make commitments, you're dang right. I'm all for the support of that to move it forward. We do need to do that. It is a good positive thing. So I guess we do have the money for sure. I will challenge Mr. Ouellette to the next time you guys come up here with presenting a $231,000, 184.50 cent deal. You should know as the ADA coordinator where the money's coming from, okay? I'm not being critical, but the truth be told, that should be something you should be able to answer, okay? That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Interim Director, Finance and Budget Director Hassler, do you mind coming and answer a quick question?
Director Hassler.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. With the funding, is this something that you're comfortable with being in the position that you are, or do you have any insight that you wish to share with the commissioners?
Commissioner Thatcher, Director Hassler. Jeez, I've had two of them up here.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Thatcher. We do have this money currently. It is one-time funding that we received over two current payments. It is uncommitted one-time funding that is, this would be a perfect use for a contract of this nature.
Thank you, Director Hassler. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I just wanted to comment, the reason why I segregated this was I had mentioned to a couple commissioners before the meeting if they understood anything about it, and nobody really knew, so I thought the only way we find out is that's our job up here, is to do some checks and balances. We certainly don't want to ever have to go through the meeting we went through 3 weeks ago. I mean, that was the toughest meeting I've ever been through. And we're decades behind on moving forward with ADA, and we got to move forward with this, and the sooner the better.
Thank you, Commissioner Callahan. And I'll just end with one thing. I know that Commissioner Anderson said that, that some of these bills are bitter to swallow, and, but it's something we have to do to get money. It's really to protect money, to go through our buildings and make sure that we're protected through ADA law. This will identify those needs that we have within our buildings that are going to protect us and protect the assets of Butte-Silver. So I just wanted to do that. So we have a motion and a second to concur and place on file communication number 2024-215. Is there anything else on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea, 0 nay.
9 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to item number 5, communication number 2024-217, JP Gallagher, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to terminate the professional service agreement, communication number 2024-166, with the Nick Gleason that was approved on April 3rd, 2024, Council of Commissioners meeting. This approach ensures compliance with the statute and eliminates any ambiguity regarding the legality or voidability of the agreement. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. The only real reason why I segregated this was after the fact that Commissioner Reardon segregated 21, which has to do with the same contract with communication 2024-233. This one would be to communication number 5's recommendation would be to concur with nulling and voiding that contract. With that would pretty much end any need for discussion on 21. So at this time, I would invite any conversation on this matter and for you to turn over to Commissioner Reardon so he could make his point on communication 233.
Commissioner Anderson, I think we would need to have discussion on this communication and take action on this communication, and then go to the to the later communication. I know that they coordinate a little bit together here, but I don't know that we can be discussing the other communication at the same time as Commissioner
No, I will
Anderson.
make a motion to concur with communication number 5 and place it on file, but I did want to give Mr. Reardon that opportunity to speak on this communication before I did so.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner
So I would
Anderson. So
just
we have
turn
a,
over
we have
the
a
floor.
motion to concur and place on file. Okay, so we do not have a second. Okay, we do not have a second. So we'll open up to more discussion. So I think Commissioner Reardon first, and then we'll.
I don't know if we have to speak on this particular subject. If we do, I guess I'll start it out. But I think that what we're looking at here, people, is a point of frustration, I would say, on everybody around this table. We had this, this contract brought before us. We discussed it in great length, and it went through not one county attorney, but 2 county attorneys and all that, and we signed what we thought was best for Butte, okay? So I understand things happen, legalities and stuff like that, but here's where I'm at. I mean, in this discussion is the naysayers and the publicity and all that. We always look out for the taxpayers' money here and all that. You've seen and heard on the streets about the amount of money that was going to be paid by this contract. And basically, believe it or not, we got a deal, and everybody around this table knows, okay? And number 2, Director Gleason really hasn't had a chance. I think about if we had to go out and ask some people in the crowd that are naysayers and just have her tell us what exact she does 12 hours a day when she's on the job. And I'm not saying JP is against having her around and all that stuff, but we had a contract. This is where I'm at. So number 1, we can discuss this contract all we want, but I would like to give Director Gleason her time to tell us, basically, I think she'll, you know her, she'll be pretty direct. She had a nice handout here, and basically, her duties and all that she has. We have a gentleman to come up about labor and all this stuff. I've been in labor 50 or 60 years. But what people in labor got to realize that somebody else pays the bill. They don't. So I don't think this group up here has ever shorted anybody on wages or compensation. But when you have a diamond in the rough, which everybody knows that we do, and the way that she operates and all that, is the fact that that's what I'm struggling with, number 1, because we approved this contract after the legal situation, and then we have a certain person or group of people that say, hey, she's making this much money, I deserve a lot more. Well, I think that, you know, we're going to come out on the short end here if we don't get our act together. We have budget coming up. I've talked to JP about it. We're looking at an RFP, okay? But the thing about it is the people on the Budget and Finance Committee, as I look around in that, we're already late. And we have people that are trying to do their job that are short people and short direction. And we talk about training. It takes a long time to do. We have people leaving payroll occasionally and things like that. But I think that all I want out of this deal is I want what's good for the people of Butte, but I also want to give Director Gleason the courtesy to hear what she has to say. I know it was in the paper, we have this, but all these naysayers. And I would really be interested in how her day is spent. I mean, it isn't like in kindergarten or something like that. I've got calls and replies from her at 7:30 at night that I called that morning, and I go, what are you doing? Call. Well, I just got home from Helen. And she called, have her computer open in her office. 6:30 in the morning, if she missed that, she'd be calling. So, you know, I'm really struggling here, and I think that the naysayers, for a lack of knowledge about what this person does for us. So that's what I'm asking, and I'm not trying to put any heat. JP and I, that's what we're trying to do, you know, is make this right with the taxpayers, but I really struggle with the contract that's already been passed. And I'll be done in a sec, but all I want to do is plead to everybody here, and when it's my time, I'm going to call Director Gleason up here, and I'm going to ask her some questions, and she's going to explain. She's always been a class act. We owe it to her, and then basically we'll find out what's going on. I don't know what to do with this contract. Right now, if we can't figure out something, I'd have to vote no on it. So I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Thatcher and then Commissioner Sorich. And then Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I have a few questions. I guess I'll start with County Attorney Fivey. As we can see on the agenda, there's two different, the same section of Montana Code annotated, but one is more specific. Has our outside legal counsel that was consulted on the first communication on the MCA 2-2-201, was the outside legal counsel consulted about the 2-2-201 2B1 or I'm not really sure what that one is.
Commissioner Thatcher, County Attorney Fivey.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Before I answer Commissioner Thatcher's question, it would be my recommendation that we do consider these communications as a whole, with being forced to vote on your communication without discussing and allowing Ms. Gleason the opportunity to present her side. In fairness to both communications, I think we can discuss them both collectively.
So do
and
we
then
bring
take
those
action.
together? So do we take cross-reference the two together? Is that what we need a motion to cross-reference these two together?
No. We wouldn't need to.
I don't think we need to cross-reference them.
Okay.
I don't think it's against the rules to
Okay.
consider them collectively, and that way, people can, voice their support or objections.
Sure.
They can also then question Ms. Gleason when she's able to present also, before being forced to vote on your communication before hers.
Hers.
That makes sense?
That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Thatcher, to answer your question, I just want to back up a little bit and explain why we got an outside opinion. I don't know if you recall, but my very first council meeting sitting at this table was the approval of this contract. I didn't have any involvement with the contract before that night. With that being said, after the contract was approved, I did start receiving communications from some union representatives asking for an opinion regarding this specific statute. So I looked at that statute, I started to formulate an opinion that I thought the statute meant, and then I asked several different attorneys in the office what they thought that statute meant. As with a lot of statutes, and because lawyers write them, they're not as clear as sometimes you'd like them to be. So because we were getting different hybrid answers for these statutes, we thought it would be beneficial and actually recommended by Ms. Joyce to seek an outside opinion, someone who hadn't been working with these unions, someone who hadn't been working with Danette, because the people inquiring, we believe, deserved thoughtful and impartial analysis of this statute. So that was a long way to get around to. She analyzed this statute as a whole. She talked about each section and then gave me an analysis of what she thought. And then Chief Executive Gallagher and myself had a phone conference with her where I was allowed to ask several questions, and we did talk about subsection 2BI.
Thank you, County Attorney Fivey. Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, County Attorney Fivey. I appreciate that. As far as your comment about the union reps reaching out, I do wish to apologize to Officer Saylor, Sergeant, I can't remember. I realize that you did not receive communication back from almost all of the commissioners, and I own that. I did not communicate back with you. I had consulted County Attorney 5e, and frankly, I wasn't really sure about the Montana Code Annotated that you quoted, and then I had never gotten back to you. So I do own that, and I do apologize. Next, though, I do want to talk about the scope of work within the contract, the original contract. Because while I feel like it's being interpreted that this is only going to affect the Budget and Finance Office and the work, the hours that were included in the professional service agreement is only going towards the Budget and Finance Office. And I just want to clarify that I believe, in my personal opinion, is not true. And if I could, I would like to call up Treasurer Baker Patrick, maybe because I understand that something like Section B on the work to perform includes educate and train staff on property tax structure and development of the mills for the city county. That would obviously fall under your jurisdiction. So I'm just wondering if you could weigh in on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. Treasurer Patrick.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioner Thatcher, yes, the scope of work that is in the professional service agreement, sections B and G both fall under my responsibilities. Little history, back when we unified the county, these duties fell on the Budget and Finance Department. So Director Gleason was ultimately responsible for a lot of the things that should have been the treasurer's responsibility. This worries me that we're at this crossroads right now. Although I'm also involved in the property tax preparation and process, I'm not to the extent that Director Gleason was. I look at the professional service agreement and the scope of work as a training session. We are so busy in our offices. Every month, every quarter, we have different things in the Budget Finance Office and in the Treasurer's Office that we're bound by statutes that we have to do. So there isn't a whole lot of time for training for these types of things. Not only that, most treasurers don't have an accounting degree or a professional accounting degree to calculate all the different types of taxes that we have to calculate. Butte-Silver is unique. We're city-county combined. We not only bill for our city and county levies, we bill for state and school levies. We have taxing jurisdictions, we have specials, we have all of our city services that we bill. All of these things have to be balanced to the penny before we send out our tax bills. There's a lot of moving parts. I would love for anybody that's interested in watching this, because this is going to be happening come July. We're going to have to start having meetings. So if in fact this agreement does get canceled, I will have to go out on my own and do an RFP. I will need professional training of some sort in order to take those duties over that Director Gleason did have. Not only the property taxes, but our idle funds as a government. That's another thing that falls under the Treasurer's Office. I am ultimately responsible for that also. Idle funds are good for investments. That helps our general fund. That helps us do a lot of our upgrades. Director Gleason not only is very smart with her investments, she has also saved us thousands and thousands of dollars in banking fees. I have proof of that. Anybody is welcome to come to my office, and I will give them the proof of that. I don't know. I'll open up for some questions.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. Is there any other questions for Treasurer Patrick? No? Okay. Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher. I think we're good there.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Lori. I appreciate it. I just wanted to just get some clarification on that, so I do appreciate you being here. Auditor McGrath, if you don't mind, could you come explain the impacts that this could have on your office?
Yeah, thank you. County Auditor McGrath, welcome. Commissioner Thatcher, so you just want to know what the impact would be on your office?
Yes, Chief Executive Gallagher and Thatcher, Danette has been an amazing asset to like Butte-Silver Bow in the investment stages of the county, but she has dealt with a lot of the, sorry, I'm kind of nervous, but the beginning parts of the investment. She has studied and communicated with our investors, and so I don't know, I just feel like I'm the kind of it's segregated duties, like, so she has to be able to I don't know.
Right.
It just impacts Butte-Silver Bow. I wasn't prepared for all of this, so, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, what questions,
Yeah.
would you have?
Thanks. Any follow-up question, Commissioner Thatcher?
Thank you, Auditor McGrath. No, I think that you answered it. I just see under the scope of duties on letter H, it's assist county auditor with cash investment and reconciliations as needed. So I just want to make sure that we are being cognizant that this isn't just going to affect the budget and finance department if we so choose to void this. Obviously, it's going to, in my opinion, affect the community as a whole. And so I just want to get some clarification directly from the sources. So I appreciate that, and I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. And then just one last thing that I have, letter D is assist and train staff on the preparation of the annual comprehensive financial report, ACFR, and preparation of the audit papers. So I guess I'm under the understanding, I'm the Budget and Finance Committee Chair, and so I guess maybe Director Hassler, you might be able to answer this question, but if something like that is late or, not completed on time, what happens?
So, Wendy, I think you're okay. Director Hassler.
Chief Executive Gallagher and Commissioner Thatcher, it is like a big black eye for our county. We have specific deadlines. There have been occasions in the past where it has been late. I'm not under Director Gleason's watch by any means, but it's important to have our financial statements out there. It's important for granting agencies. We have our schedule of federal awards that we have to have that all scheduled out, according to the grants that we receive, and it just shows that we're fiscally responsible, that we have the ability to handle the funds that we are granted and our taxpayer funds.
Thank you, Director Hassler. Any other questions of commissioners? Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I got a couple comments and I've got a question. I'm just going to comment that I've worked with Danette, God, I don't know, over 15 years or whatever, and I can always say that Danette has always had the taxpayers in mind. Whatever she's done, it's always been for what's right for the taxpayer. So for her to get beat up over that she wanted to charge us $150, I don't think that's fair. Last year she worked really hard and her team worked really hard to keep our tax increase at a 2% when the rest of the state was going skyrocketing. She worked many, many hours. She puts together a financial report every year, the budget. Like she said in today's paper, she left 2,900 hours on the table. For her to get beat up and because she wanted to retire, I don't think that's real fair. But my question, the institutional knowledge she has is unsurmountable. So my question is, if in the event that we do cancel this contract and it is, determined illegal, what is your plan to try to bring in somebody to help to make sure that our, the budget is submitted and all this is submitted to on time?
Commissioner Sarge, I think that's probably directed here. So my recommendation here is to void the contract that we have with the net based on what we found out and the interpretation from the independent attorney on, I want to make sure I have the statute right, 2-2-201. I want people to understand that this contract that we negotiated and worked into, was reviewed by the county attorney, and there was nothing that showed up there. Once we got information that it could have a possible violation, that's when we looked at this. And so there is language in here that does jump out at us, and where I would see us having an issue, and probably a legal issue, of violating Montana law, and why my recommendation is to terminate the contract. It is based on that we did, and Officer Saylor did indicate, we did talk about this contract prior to Danette's leaving, knowing that the scope of service is what we were looking at, not knowing that was a violation of any law at that time, and no intent there. The skills that Danette has, and everybody acknowledges here, we need to have that training for our staff. That because of what happened during COVID, the turnover that we've had within staff, all those other things, we were lacking a lot of that training that was needed. Director Gleason chose to retire at a time that she chose for her family, and because of having a grandchild. That is all true. So at that point, when we entered into the contract without any indication that there was any violation of law there, that that it was a legitimate contract, we entered into that contract. I do see some conflicts that could potentially put us in a situation where legally this could be challenged. And so with that, that's my recommendation, to terminate this contract. With that, as County Attorney Fyvie indicated, there's after a person leaves employment, you can't engage for 6 months with that employee directly. But through an RFP process, there is an ability of having a proposal out there, and we talked about this, and maybe it's breaking it up into different pieces that we can do that could be put out to the public, and then Danette at that time, from my understanding, would be able to put back in for that, as would other people in the community, or somebody that's qualified to do that would be able to do that. I think that is why we're recommending, and not to say that we're going to engage in going right back to Danette or whatever, but I think we can go out to a RFP and then put out for some of those performance tasks that we have listed here. And so those are the things that we need to have. We know that the challenges are, financially, we need to have these skills in the finance and budget department, in the treasurer's office, in the auditor's office. Those things need to be had. So we need to look at how we're going to do that. So with that, I'll follow up Commissioner O'Neill, Commissioner Anderson, and Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. This would be a question for County Attorney Fyvie. If let's say we do approve, just say, hey, we're going to approve the contract, keep it where we're at. How much do you think it would cost the county? If we get sued for doing that, I don't know. Can you give me an estimated number on what you think we'd be sued for? With that being said, we just approved a $231,000 thing in our budget and again, it's very important. I'm not being critical. Please note, but we have money to spend. So I feel like either way we're going to get sued. What's our best bang for our buck versus the other one? Thank you.
Commissioner O'Neill and County Attorney Fyvie. I don't know if you could put a number to that.
Gallagher, Commissioner O'Neill, I guess the question would be, who is suing us and what are they suing us for? I think the easier question would be to fill in those blanks. If someone had a contract that was valid and it was rescinded, they could certainly sue for the value of that contract. I don't know that that's what you're asking me. I believe your question was, if the contract is upheld, what would it cost the county for somebody else to sue us? Yes?
Yes.
Who knows? I mean, it would depend on who would have a cause of action against the county for upholding a contract. You know, and like I said before, there is different interpretations of this contract. I believe this statute by myself was shopped around to probably at least 5. We then went to outside counsel that had 2 attorneys. So I think if there is a lawsuit generated from following or not following this statute, I'm giving you a real lawyer answer, but it would really be up to a court to determine how the court analyzes this statute and whether or not upholding it, voiding a contract or not voiding a contract, runs afoul of this. And I will say, my office typically approves contracts as to form and not necessarily as to a statute. And there is no attorney that knows every statute in every code book for the state of Montana. And so I don't want the idea to be put out there that my predecessor knew about this statute and ignored it, because she certainly did not. I didn't know the existence of this statute until it was brought to my attention. And once it was, I believe we have worked on this and tried to come up with some kind of conclusion and analysis that makes sense to everybody, both in-house and out-of-house. So I just wanted to say that. But to answer your question, Commissioner O'Neill, I guess it would depend on who has a cause of action and what that cause of action would be and what the value of those damages would be for that plaintiff.
Thank you, County Attorney Fyvie. So we're on to Commissioner, was it Commissioner Anderson next? And then, okay.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. My question was on the, not political, the legal liability we would have on the issue. I feel like we're kind of in between a rock and a hard place, unfortunately. First off, would go on record as saying that I really do truly appreciate everything that Danette Gleason has done for the county over the years. You can't even begin to count the many times that I've been into her office or made a phone call and had nothing but a good conversation, and I've learned so much from her over the years, and I really wish that she was still an employee of the county, and it would make all of this so much easier. Unfortunately, it's not. Unfortunately, I personally believe that going through with this contract exposes us to a lot of undue risk that we really don't need to take. I think that there's been easy workarounds for this with RFPs and everything else. It's rather unfortunate, but as Treasurer Baker and Auditor mentioned, that there is an awful lot of new duties that have been integrated into the different jobs. And Danette has plenty of experience in navigating that and could help so many people in this. I'm sure that everybody involved with this, the auditor, the treasurer, and Ms. Hassler, the new director, would all love her help. And as a commissioner who has worked on these budgets over the last 14 years, I know very much that I would very much welcome all the help I could get from her as I received the last umpteen years since she took over from Mr. Ammerman. So I think the best course of action, again, would be to unfortunately concur with this communication and deny the other communication and let the chips fall where they may, and then at that time have a RFP put forward that would be in more compliance with this MCA subsection 2-201. I know it's a long and arduous process, but as I stated before, more often than not, there is a whole bunch of rules governing what can and cannot be done by government organizations on these matters. I think that Danette Gleason and former County Attorney Joyce put in a good faith effort to do what was right for them and the county. Unfortunately, there was some hiccups in it that puts us to where we are today. And I am upset by it. I thought that it would be a good way to get everybody what they needed, but it's looking more and more like it's not. And so that being said, I think we do need to fall back on the RFP, a new request for proposals for these different things. It's going to be more work and it's going to be more headache, but it's going to be the best way to get the job done and not expose the county to undue legal issues arising. I don't know if anybody would bring any up. I'm sure that somebody would. People tend to like to go after big pockets, and the county seems to have them. So with that all being said, and my deepest apologies to Danette Gleason, because I really hate to do this, but I think it's in the best course of action for the county and all parties involved, would be to again to deny, to concur with this communication and void the contract and place this on file. And then at a time down the road, we can put this out for an RFP.
So I have a question, County Attorney Fyvie. Can, Commissioner Anderson had made that motion before and didn't get a second on it. Are we able, is he able to do the same motion? And I think somebody else would have to make that motion. But I do want one thing. That I know that there was in the beginning of the conversation that commissioners wanted to hear, and you were one of them that wanted to hear from former Director Gleason. Right. And so, if permissible by the commissioners here, if somebody would like to call for, okay, Commissioner Reardon, former Director Gleason, if you would come forward.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioners, for the record, Danette Gleason. I'm a sole proprietor, Danette Gleason, doing business as Danette Gleason Accounting and Financial Reporting Services, 8735 Highway 10 here in Butte. I apologize for some of this confusion that's happened. I did present to the local government an option that we could do a joint letter And I think that would have solved some of the confusion that's happening now, but that didn't take place. So, and I fully understand people's different positions, and we had very different positions on this, so I understand the processes, but I do appreciate a little bit of time. I first handed out to you tonight the Butte-Silver Bow Ethics Policy 100, and I'm going to try to do this really quick and read fast. It was adopted March 20th, 2019, and was just amended by this council on October 18, 2023. That's the first handout that you have in your packet tonight. If you look at it, it's 2 sentences in length, and it makes a reference. It does not make a reference to this MCA and this statute that we're talking about. Second of all, it does, however, make a reference to Chapter 2.02 of the Butte-Silver Bow Municipal Code. And I would like to state that also in the Municipal Code, there's not a reference to this statute. I'm addressing all this because this ordinance also was not, has not been amended since 1996. This is the Code of Ethics, and these are the policies that I fall on as a county employee when I'm trying to look and see what's ethical as far as the Code of Ethics. I was not aware of this other statute that's out there. I know County Attorney Eileen Joyce was not aware of this statute. I've reached out to several others that I have respectful and have worked with across the local governments across all the state of Montana. Several of them were not also aware of the statute. I say that only because also in my 20 years of working here in the local government, I never recall once this ever being referenced before the Council of Commissioners, nor was I ever part of discussion of this statute administratively. I also agree that in the absence of this statute does not mean that it's not applicable. I do understand that Butte-Silver Bow is subject to all federal and state laws, and I believe the charter even states that. And it, like County Attorney Kelly Fyvie just had mentioned, it is impossible to know every single statute that's out there and make it applicable, but we do have in our charter that references that. So I do agree that this statute, now that it's public and known, and it's been brought to my attention that it's out there, that I am as a former employee, but also current employees, this is applicable to. So also in the legal interpretations, just to justify the contract should be void, or how you justify the contract should be voided, and individuals reviewing on my behalf, similar to what Kelly Fyvie did, I had several outside legal counsel look at this contract. There wasn't one of them that interpreted that the contract that I in the PSA agreement with the scope of work that was entered into, that I presented to you and also presented in my letter, was in violation of this statute. I think what you have to look at, and to everybody's credit as well, you also have to go to the legislative history. So I did that. I did my work. I did my homework with my legal team, and we went through the legislative history. This law was adopted in 1895, and since was amended in 1907, 1921, 1935, 1973, 1979, 1981, 1991, and lastly in 2001. Unfortunately, the legislative history prior to 1977 is held with the Montana Historical Society, and I was told because of the major construction that's happening there, I could not access these records and probably could not access the 1977 and prior until after 2025 when the construction is complete. However, I did get the legislative history from the Montana State Law Library related to the changes in the law from 1979, 1981, 1991, 1993, and 2001. 1997 was the first time in the legislature, in the law, that former employee was addressed. And it does state, just like you've heard tonight several times over, I'm not going to read it, it does reference that an employee may not within 6 months following the termination of employment contract or be employed by a contractor or employee who contracts with state or any of its subdivisions involving matters which he, unfortunately this is 1979, so it says he, not she or they or workers, was in here I stress, it says directly involved during the employment. 1981, the amendment was, there was amendments to address conflict of interest and allow contractors, whenever there was geographic restrictions, to otherwise be unavailable to a local government. Businessmen could serve on the Council of Commissioners and be school board members even if they had direct ties into the contracts. In 1991, the definition former employee does not include, was added to state that it does not include employment with the state was involuntary terminated due to a reduction in force or other involuntary termination not involving violation and provisions of the chapter. In 1993, the compiler's comments, because it's long, so I'll try to make this brief, established a process by where a local government can waive the conflict of interest provisions for certain officers and employees and made minor changes in style. Testimonial comments were more related to how employees nor family members were able to even apply for grant funds more related to the community development grant block programs that Karen's department runs. So what they said is that you could hold a public hearing, you could opt to contract or do a conflict of interest out during that 1993 amendment. Then I pulled Senate Bill 90, which was the last amendment that relates to the changes in 2001. This is in your packet. I direct you to those statutes. I've highlighted that. What this does is clarify employee and former employee contract involvement restrictions and added directly involved and removed the section added in 1993 that was added to hold a public hearing and waive the interest. In this context of the statute, directly involved is stated as, if you look at your statute, I have it highlighted, and it also references current employees and former employees on directly involved. It means the person directly monitors a contract, extends or amends a contract, audits a contractor, is responsible for a contractor, the procurement or of evaluating proposals or vendor's responsibility, or renders legal advice concerning the contract. I ask you to please read that carefully. It says, it means the person directly monitors a contract. There was never a contract in my tenure as Finance and Budget Director that I monitored, that I procured as Finance and Budget Director to train me or to do any of the items and elements listed on that scope of work. This is my legal representation and what they're stating to me. In my tenure at Butte-Silver as a Finance and Budget Director, like I said, there was never a contract for the scope of services in this PSA. In full disclosure, I did have conversations with Chief Executive Gallagher, the Treasurer, the Auditor, and the Interim Director on what the scope of work would look like. I shared the requirements that I would require in my accounting engagement because now I'm an independent and now I have to have all my own insurances, and I had legal advice on what elements had to be in the contract, mainly meaning that this local government would always have maintain the management control. I was not doing that. My main function was training and trying to get people my institutional knowledge shared with them. And I also need to step back. These people are all very capable of doing this work. I know them. I've seen them work. And not only did I have hours and hours and days and weekends and holidays and Christmases and New Year's Eves working, they did too. And these people are committed and can do the work. It's just that we've never had time to do any of the training and cross-training that was needed. And I think that was broad. It was like kind of like shame on us. But just like every other department in this local government, we were hit with COVID too. But I ask all of you, did we miss a payroll? Did we miss a vendor check run? No. The answer is no. My staff worked sick. They worked with sick kids. They worked at home. We all did payroll. I did payroll. I did accounts payable. I did payroll a week or two before I left because of the transitions that we had in our department. We all stepped in and did the functions of whatever it took to make this government run. And I say like this, that it's been very difficult. The challenges of COVID have been across this whole government. We've seen it. We've seen people not wanting, not taking jobs that we would normally have 40, 50 applicants for. And then the next day, we'd advertise a job and we'd have 40 or 50 applicants. It is just not making sense. But we also did have employees leave our departments. I think HR Director Warren can explain to you, she does exit conferences, and I'm sure in a few of those exit conferences, it talked about the ability of not being able to take vacation. There's people in the Finance and Budget Department that lose vacation. I lost vacation. They lose vacation time because of the hours that they put in and the work that they do for this community. I also was asked, and I've heard a few comments about some of the other funding and some sources. I want to touch a little bit, because just to add to Karen's comments about, and I think Commissioner Thatcher or Commissioner Sorge, one of them asked a question about, well, what happens with the annual comprehensive financial report if that doesn't get filed timely? Well, let me tell you. You have, as a council of commissioners, you have close to 30-some million, I actually have it somewhere right here, $30+ million in outstanding bond debt. So what that does to you is that if you fail to meet the compliance, there's a section of law, you've signed off, the chief executive has signed off, the finance and budget director in the position has signed off, it's called continuing disclosure requirements. You've signed off that you will meet the continuing disclosure requirements in whatever bond document, whichever one we have. Some of them say your bonds, your filing of your financial report has to be done by March 15th, for example. We used to have one that was March 15th. We now have, they're all, or sorry, not we now, the city and county has one that is, they're all March 30th. Failure to comply is failure to comply with 15.2C of the Security and Exchange Commission, and that causes penalty, significant penalty to this local government. When I came back in 2014, I had discovered non-compliance. At that time, the law was just being implemented. So 15.2C was just becoming not implemented. I worked under this actually Dodd-Frank law, if any of you hear about this, in trading or whatnot. Some of the people that aren't here tonight would have known it from Northwestern. But it was mainly around, Dodd-Frank was mainly around trading, but it moved into local governments and filing of local government reports. When I came back in 2014, and you can go out on the site, it's Emma, Karen can give you guys the website, she can give you all the information. You're gonna see a report that I had to file that the former office had late filed. We were 9 days. There's also legal opinions. There's legal opinions in the clerk and recorder's office. There's legal opinions that we had to go back and make sure, because if that final bond issue from the former department had been issued 9 days different than what it was, this local government was subject to hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. So what we did, and what we had to file late, we had to say by the legal opinion that we, that 2014 annual report, not I was in 15, remember, was filed late, and that we had to make the comments related to it, but there were no fines and penalties because of the issue date. So those are the things that happen. And you have also signed off on that continuing disclosure as commissioners, so you have concerns that making sure that it's filed timely. You've also passed resolutions. That's why you get that report that I sent to you in March, right when I was leaving. I said I really wanted to leave more like March 15th, but we had to make sure that it was all filed, and I had that action sent to you on the council. It's that report that has all the traded QSIP numbers that says the report was filed. That's a requirement so that you know on your behalf, I, as the finance and budget director and the chief executive, met that deadline. Those are huge. Those are things that we don't talk about. We talk all about the budget. We all know there's deadlines with the budget. With the budget, if it's not done timely, it holds up lorry and tax bills. It holds up levy cards. If we hold up the levy card and are late with all the statute requirements with levy cards, they can wait 30, 60, 90 days. I don't know, Lori could probably tell you more, but the Department of Revenue does not have to give us our final downloads for our tax bills. So that delays the ability to go back and get taxes. So I mention that just because I think that was brought up. I'm trying to skip through my notes and get through here quickly. I also gave to you in your packet, if you want to reference, there is a document that says, it's a Standard & Poor's rating agency document. I gave you that. This was in 2016 when we first were looking at issuing our general obligation bonds that related to the pool bonds and over $6.5 million in bonds. And then this also relates to the rating of a 2017 series for our GO bond refunding. Commissioner O'Neill will probably know more about this when I speak of it, but I had to sit on a rating agency call, get drilled on the financial position of the local government, get drilled on our budget, get drilled on our policies. They're very in-depth. It's similar to any other rating agency call. Because of what we did, and you can see that, this is a document from the rating agency. Karen has the other one on file. It says S&P Global Ratings showed that we had a very weak economy with concentrated local tax base. This is back in 2016. Things have changed immensely. However, because of the work that we did, we got a rating agency increase adjustment. We went from an A-, again, Commissioner O'Neill will understand this, to a AA-. In the GO bonds that we issued for the 2016 series, our office saved this county to over $569,000 because of that rating agency increase. In 2017, Now, we're issuing these in December when we're going through our audit. And it's all about timing. It's all about interest rates. It's all about timing. And we step aside, work at night on the financial statements, and come back during the day to get this other work done. And in 2017, I think it was over $500,000 in savings because of the change in our rating. And if you look again, I just want to read it. It did say we had a very weak economy with concentrated local tax base. However, strong management with good financial policies and practices under our finance management assessment technology method. Adequate budgetary performances with operating surpluses in the general fund, but we do have an operating deficit in the total government level. This was again in 2016. That's all changed. It's even better than it was then. Very strong budgetary flexibility with the ability to fund balance in fiscal year 2016 of 22%. Very strong liquidity with total government available cash at 30.8%. These are real items. These are the things that when we're out there trying to explain to people that this is the work that we do to save money, save $1,500,000 on one, $569 on another, so that we don't have tax increases, but we still increase wages. We still increase operating supplies. We still do what we try to do everything we can. And that's what's difficult. It's difficult, and I know, and I don't expect everybody to understand, and I do not by no means feel that anybody in union negotiations doesn't have a right to come before us and ask for more. And we all know the times are tough, but the times are tough for the local government too. So as well as the increases in wages, you see increases in everything. And for years, I as a finance and budget director, was tasked from your guidance. It's not that the finance and budget director's job to sit there and say that we're only going to offer 4%, we're only going to offer 2%, we're only going to offer 5%. Hey, I've been here when wages were froze. John, Commissioner Zorich has been here when they were froze. We had 2 bankruptcies happen to us. We not only froze wages, we cut 22 vacant positions, and 4 of them came in the finance and budget department. Those things happen, and we had to work with them. We built back up, and we were able to add positions across all the departments that were cut. Fire was cut positions as well, and back in those days, and right when we were going to go out for our budget and get it passed. But we worked hard, and that's the goals of what we do in this office, is to try to make the big picture work, and we minimize the tax impacts, to citizens. We know who lives here. We know who can pay the bill, right? At the end of the day, if we send out a bill and nobody can pay it, that's not going to do us any good. So we know tax impacts. We know user rate impacts. We know that we have unions in different types of supported funds. We have unions and all employees. This is all employees. We have employees in tax-supported funds, which is about 70% tax-supported funds is personnel costs. So we have that. We have water division and enterprise funds, Metro Sewer, that have a whole different structure of how they get revenue, and you have to try to put it all together. Not just us, with the guidelines of what the commission's given us and what the chief executive has given us. It's taxing. It's a lot of work, and it's very taxing, and I'll tell you, I had the good fortunate to work my way up in this local government. I started at the water division with Washington Corporation. I came over to the budget office right when the water company was getting taken over by the city. I worked on the bond issues, the rate cases. I had all that knowledge very young. I became the assistant finance and budget director, first woman, assistant finance and budget director, first woman director, assistant director at a very young age. But I was given the opportunity, and the girls from former directors, and they shared with me their knowledge. They shared everything that they had with me, and I was able to build up off of that. Unfortunately, with COVID, with the transitions, not that we were able to share things. I've shared a lot, as much as possible. But the technicalities, I was not able to do. The true, not just handing over 1510 420 in the mill value calculation and saying, go for it, because that's not just how you do it. Oh yeah, there's an instructions, and anybody can follow the instructions and put the numbers in. But what does it really mean, and what does it do to this community? I also wanted to just quickly address that, yes, we did have conversations about this contract before. Full transparency, absolutely. I would never. As a matter of fact, If my legal people came to me and said, Danette, this is, even if half of them came to me and said, Danette, yeah, I don't really think this is legal, I would have been probably the first one before you with Chief Executive Gallagher saying, void this contract. You know my integrity and you know my ethics. I would have stood before you and said, void it. However, again, like I said, and like Ms. Fifey has stated, there is a lot of different interpretations and a lot of different gray areas that are out there. I have taken up, I have a lot more to share. I think people talked a lot about the dollar amount and all that. I think people know that when you're a contractor, you get to pay everything. You get to pay your liability insurance. You get to pay every side of taxes. You get to pay all of that. I worked with a consultant. I gathered numbers. I looked at what other nonprofits are paying, and I felt that was a fair number. And I also want to comment, the hours in there said up to 120 hours. It was never, I think, Commissioner Sorge, Commissioner Frederickson, can't remember the night that was passed, Commissioner O'Neill might have brought it up. It was never an intention, and I think you all knew about it. I think somebody even talked about me babysitting 2 days a week for my grandbaby. I was never going to work 120 hours a month. I had told you all before, I had already had another contract commitment and working on another one, and I did not have the hours. I think the 120 out there was just trying to give the county some focus that, yes, during budget time, when we're meeting deadlines, and I'm trying to help Lori and trying to help, or I should say, the treasurer by position, and the interim finance and budget director, and when I'm trying to reconcile cash and investments for year end with the auditor, that work could take additional hours. And I was committing that I would work more hours at that point in time. Never, and I think all of you know that. You knew what my plans were when I was retiring. I made it clear in department head meetings. I made it clear many times across this government what my intentions were. So I did want to clarify that. And, you know, I think people that know me, and like you had said on the council the night that it was passed, you also understood that I had no intentions of doing that. I do also just want to state too that I think that this section of law, and if you do choose to go the way you do, I think that you also need to remember that this section of law also includes current employees. That's wide-reaching, especially the broad interpretation of direct involvement. And I think not only do you owe it to the employees, even to Mr. Saylor's family, I wouldn't want him to be in this position that I'm in, or any of these other people that are sitting here today that don't really feel that it's legal. I wouldn't want them sitting here today without full understanding of what this law means and what they're going to be held to and accounted to. I wouldn't want them to be in this position. I think the current employees that are here at Butte-Silver Bow deserve, and this is what happens in Northwestern Energy. Commissioner Storch can jump in and say this or not, but annually there's conflict of interest training, and you go in and you do a survey to justify your conflict of interest. Do I have so much ownership in a business, and this business did some work for Butte-Silver Bow? Or, yeah, I do work part-time on the side doing ABC work at Butte-Silver Bow, and it looks the same as another contract that has a company that contracts with Butte-Silver Bow. Is that appropriate? I think that has to be addressed. I think that it has to be addressed because you're bringing it forward today. And then I also think that you need to do the annual trainings with the Code of Ethics signed off on, and I think you also need to go back and revise the Code of Ethics to include these statutes and make a cheat sheet. Help people learn what this is about. I'm not blaming anybody. I think totally everybody here today, not one person knew this statute was out there. We had former directors, we've had former department heads, we've had former staff, we've had them all leave the local government and take employment with employers, as the law states, with employers that have contracts with Butte-Silver Bow doing the same work they're involved in. That has happened. It has definitely happened. We all know that has happened. I think I pointed out to several incidents to several of you, as well as we've had 8 state agency employees, university employees, school employees also come work to Butte-Silver Bow. And if we're doing this broad interpretation of involvement, direct involvement, and we're not reading directly, and we're not reading procurement, and we're just taking a broad definition. If you were involved at all in this work, then I'm pretty sure that several of them came to work for us and didn't wait 6 months. So I think it needs to be clarified, and I think in justice to everybody. I think that not just myself, I think for current employees as well, so they have a full understanding of what happens to them once they leave employment. Currently, if they have, today of all days, everybody is working a couple different jobs. And I think it's even more prevalent. And so, some people have different shift work. They have that opportunity to work a couple different jobs. Or they have an opportunity they work 4/10s and they can pick up work on a Friday. So I just think in all fairness to everyone, me as a former employee, future former employees, and current employees, this needs to be addressed immediately. Even if you deny this contract and you move forward and you're going forward with that type of a definition based on denying the contract because of direct involvement the way you're denying my contract, then I think you need to make this applicable to everyone. My statement is singling out means that. I don't think it's fair to single out anyone. Whether it's me or another employee, you can't single us out. It's broad reaching. So I thank you for this time. I've always been dedicated and loyal to this local government. I do appreciate this time. I fully understand all your positions when you have a legal outside opinion coming to you, and what do you do? I know, and I've had that conversation with each one of you, what I would do if I was in your position. And so I do totally understand what would happen. However, I do request that if you deny the contract, you immediately work on an RFP to support my staff, my former staff.
Yeah.
And that does not mean I will apply for the RFP. It means you're supporting the people that I left behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gleason. To that point, I think that, there is no doubt the work that Danette Gleason has done for this government, and everything that she said is valid and true. The struggle is that something that was brought to us that we didn't know was identified in the past now is being brought forth, and so we have to make an interpretation of what that means. And so that puts the government in a difficult position, and I don't believe that anybody, and I know this for a fact, as we were developing that contract, it was done 100% in good faith, and with the end game being that the taxpayers in Butte-Silver Bow would benefit from the training and the skills that Danette could have. What we're faced with, and this is the difficult decision, is does this 2-2-201, based on our contract with her, does it violate the law? And I know that the history was put up there and changes were made to that and language added to it, and within that language, does that put us in a position? And I know there's been multiple different attorneys look at this, and it's hard. We were asked to go out to an outside entity, and that's where my position was, because it was an unbiased opinion. Sometimes we're too close, and there's a very big emotion to that. And so my commitment still stays to void this contract, because I don't think it's valid. I don't think that we can enforce it. But I do believe what Danette just did request is that we do need to go out for RFPs immediately to try to make sure that we have the training and the skill development available for those departments. There's multiple departments that this impacts, and not only the ones that are there, but also school district and different things as well. So this is an emotional and challenging thing. And so it's still my recommendation that we void this contract. So Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I guess my question here right now is, as we're looking at this contract and RFPs and all that, we're already down the road on this budget and all that, and if we bring people in that aren't, say Danette doesn't want to play or whatever, is the fact that how long is this process going to take to get these people assistance to get this budget process done that's been structured over a period of years? That's my concern, is that, we're losing already because we probably would have had, I believe, the people on budget finance, at least one meeting already or a couple presentations. So that's the main concern as yours. I get it, you know, but the thing about it is that I don't know. It's a tough position to be in, you know. We're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. But like I said, I think the main thing that if we void this contract is that basically we know who we want to have if there's an RFP, and you know, like I said, you know, after what she's been through, it might be a tough pill to swallow. So I don't think we can count on that. So I just think that the time frame, no matter what we do, we got to do something, and we got to do it fast. But I would like to see the number one player, but I don't know if that's possible. So I don't know if there's an answer to that question.
Thanks, Commissioner Reardon. Commissioner Callahan.
Thanks, Chief Executive Gallagher. I just want to comment and tell Danette, you know, every one of us up here have the utmost respect for you. And there's got to be a solution to this. My thought is, rather than make a decision tonight, why can't you and whoever your legal team is, I think you're very smart, you probably don't even need a legal team, and our legal team and Chief Executive Gallagher sit down and figure out a way to get through this to where we can make this work. If you're willing to do that, would that work out, or? Because you did bring some stuff to our attention. You know, you're not the only one that would fall under this situation. I believe right now we've got current employees work here that would be violating the same situation. So this thing could get really big.
Commissioner Callahan, I think she did bring some specific things happening within, and those are things we need to address and have within policy. I think that this brought to an attention that's something that we didn't know about. The struggle that I would see with that is that potentially could kick the can farther down the road, because if we're going to go into a legal debate back and forth how to try to make this work, and then we don't come to a conclusion and we don't get out for an RFP, so that could delay things as well. But you know, this is a tough situation, but I don't know if that's a solution. Do anyone else, commissioners? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I just want to put on the record that I don't think we're in any other situations with any other employees like we are right now on Butte-Silver Bow. Mr. Kent, I mean, that's a bold statement to be putting out to the public. We could address that another night then too. I mean, for Christ's sake, that's not true, right? I mean, let's not say stuff if we don't know what let's not put that out there, okay?
So, I don't know where we would need to have some type of action here. Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. And this is just difficult, like we all know, with Donette. The public, though, the public is looking for more answers. I know that we went out to legal counsel. I know that we've always believed in outside legal counsel on this. How the public, the questions that I've received through emails and calls and texts is, how long do we go? When is it ever, when you leave a job and if you have an opportunity, when is it not replaced? I mean, if it's replaced within that, do we not have competent enough people to do these jobs? That's what we're saying right now to the public. I don't believe that. I think Danette's even said that there's competent people within her building that she's believes that's continue to do this. It's just a tough situation, but you're also saying there's not competency there within that department now. That's kind of what you're saying to that right now, and that's what the public is out there, and they're the taxpayer that we all keep on saying, we talk about with the taxpayer of what is there. If you leave your job, someone's going to replace you. I know this is a situation, and with that one sentence of the 6 month, and it's in discrepancy of from here, there, the other. The legal team went out with the public. They had outside counsel. How many more outside counsels do we have to do? I don't think it's something that, as you would say, or as Commissioner Fisher is not here, or Chief Executive said, to kick it down the road. Just kind of torn through this, and I mean, the contract is 5 years, can be reviewable every year. Is that, or am I off on the contract? How long is the contract for?
It could be 5 years, renew with review every year.
With every year. So when we say where are we gonna be at, we've all been in a position where we've lost somebody that's close within, but this is a different circumstance for sure, how much she's helped out our community, but that's what the public is asking. That's what they wanna know. That's what the taxpayer that we all keep on talking about this table. So that's the decision that we have to make, and I know I'm just stating that. Where are we gonna go? If we need this training, I would hope that, you know, this seems to be the best solution if we do, and we're not gonna go through legal. And we're not gonna lose money through legal expenses. And we go out for an RFP. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Mankins. Commissioner Reardon.
We're all pretty fair around here and all that, and I was kind of shocked, we're talking legal and all that stuff and talking benefits with organized labor and all that. I just wonder where we're at with Mrs. Gleason's 2,900 hours of comp time.
Commissioner Reardon, so when you're a non-exempt employee, you only get courtesy time, which is non-compensated. So you get an hour for hour that can be used, but it is not compensated, and there is no payout or buyout of that, unlike that is in other contracts, union contracts and stuff.
Thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Thatcher and then Commissioner Fortune.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Are we square with Ms. Gleason for the hours that she did do? She did perform?
Commissioner Thatcher, I do not know if former Director Gleason had billed those hours and if we have paid those yet. I think that she did the hours of work, and so even within that contract, I would hope to find a way to make sure that those are compensated. So I do not know if we've paid those. No. Okay. So we have not paid the hours. Commissioner Fortune.
Chief Executive, personally, I think that we could get ourselves in a different jam with Ms. Gleason's legal counsel. I mean, we signed a contract, and 2 weeks ago, everyone thought it was great, including you. And I think, personally, I think we take our chances with that. I think the people that have reached out to me are mad about the wages, but the wages will come. I mean, negotiations happen whether Ms. Gleason's here or not, and I think just like Mr. Mankins just said, every year we reevaluate the contract. If Danette helps the staff like she says she's gonna, we probably don't need her for 5 years, and I don't think she wants to be around for 5 years. So, I mean, personally, I know it sucks, and I know people are mad about the wages, but what position do we have? I'm all for rolling the dice and sticking with Danette, and Danette knows what these guys need to know, and she's going to teach them, and that's the chance we take.
Commissioner Fortune, I will say this, one of the things that we were told that is, if this is in violation, which we were told, then it's not a valid contract, and so it's not enforceable either way. That's what we've been told, but Commissioner Fortune.
Chief Executive, just to that point, we've also been told tonight that it's been interpreted several different ways, so I still think that needs to be looked at.
Thank you, Commissioner Fortune. The one thing that I'm challenged with on this is that we went to an outside attorney and asked them, and we haven't had an opinion from other attorneys that brought forward to us to state what that is. And so that's a challenge for me. I mean, we've been told there's other opinions, but there hasn't been another attorney that has given an opinion to us saying that. And so I'm challenged with that. So I ask that. So Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Chief Executive. So who is the other legal outside counsel, if we may ask or have privy information that is given us, and who are the two that we keep on referring to that has given us this outside counsel?
Commissioner Mankins. So the ones that we went to outside counsel was Cindy Walker and the other gentleman's name, Elliot McGill, who we go to quite often on contract laws and different litigation that we've had from Butte-Silver Bow when we go to outside counsel. This is difficult. There is no doubt about it. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. You know, everybody's saying, or there's some people are saying that nobody is indispensable, and that's correct. Everybody can be replaced. Some of these jobs, though, we need people that really know. You know, they need to have that technical skill set. They need to know the what's going on. You know, we've heard these people say, if it doesn't get done on an timely basis while we're learning, we're going to get fined hundreds of thousands of dollars, or we're going to get downgraded. We need to have that training happen. Maybe a succession plan someday down the road. Some people are just a little more harder to replace than others. Yes, nobody is irreplaceable, but this is just one of those situations where it's going to be, I believe in my mind, it's going to be hard to find that person in an RFP that's going to get it done in a timely manner.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorge. Commissioner Thatcher.
Just one last clarification. County Attorney Fivey, I know you discussed that the outside counsel had reviewed the entire ordinance. I guess just for clarification, did they review the definition of it directly involved?
Commissioner Thatcher, County Attorney Fivey.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Thatcher. Yes, so we had asked, or I had requested Ms. Walker to evaluate the statute in its entirety from top to bottom. And I feel like it's kind of becoming the elephant in the room on what the other opinions were, and I'm happy to just lay it out there so you guys can have everything. Ms. Walker and her associate determined that the contract on its face was in violation of this code. Not only did she feel like it fit this scenario, but that said she believed that the optics in general were negative, which obviously is what the feedback a lot of us were receiving, that it would be in the best interest of Butte-Silver Bow to void the contract. The way I had viewed this statute, and you'll see how much in the weeds we were all getting, is I viewed this as more of a covenant not to compete type of statute. And the portion of the statute that got to me in the beginning and continues to get to me are the former employee may not within 6 months following the termination of employment, that's pretty clear. This portion, contract or be employed by an employer who contracts with the state or any of its subdivisions. The way I read that was, let's pretend Ms. Gleason worked for Butte-Silver Bow and assisted in Butte-Silver Bow obtaining a contract with an entity like Newland and Company. She participated in that. She helped Butte-Silver Bow get that contract, what have you, negotiated. To me, this statute meant that she, after her termination for 6 months, because she was directly involved with procuring that contract with Butte-Silver Bow and an entity like Newland and Company, it would prohibit her from going to work for Newland and Company. That's how I initially read it. And then we really got into the weeds on it because I started bracketing language and I started putting commas in where commas were not. In that case, if we put in some bracketed language and took some language out, which as an attorney you're taught, you never insert anything that's not already there, you don't admit anything that is there. But when I did that and I bracketed out the portion that said, or be employed by an employer who contracts, it reads, a former employee may not, within 6 months following the termination of employment, contract with the state or any of its subdivisions involving matters which with the former employee was directly involved during the employment. So for me, that then changed my analysis that if we remove or be employed by an employer, which when in my first scenario would have been Newland and Company, and you just read that without, then I thought it applied to this situation. So that's why I'm talking about, I had a hybrid type analysis of what does this actually mean. And so then when you go down to the definition of being directly involved, what was Danette directly involved in when we're talking about the contract, either she's extending for herself or for somebody else. And so because I kept going down a rabbit hole, I asked our chief deputy what her opinion was, and then I asked a couple of our other deputy county attorneys in the office what their opinion was. I kept getting different opinions. I then went back and asked Ms. Joyce what her opinion was. She felt the statute did not apply to this situation. And what I found myself doing is trying to insert language and take language out to try to satisfy the union representatives that were inquiring, or possibly being clouded by the fact that I had also worked with Danette. So in order to get an impartial, outside legal opinion, that's why we went there. It's not because we couldn't analyze this, it's just because we kept getting different analysis from it. So the question becomes, if you void the contract, will Danette sue? Does she have damages? I don't know. If you don't void the contract, do you have somebody else with a claim of action because it should be voided? I don't know. The problem is, when you have a statute like this that's ambiguous, that's why lawsuits happen. They go to court and you have a judge who has law clerks and advisors to say, this is what it means and it applies or it doesn't. And so I hate to not just sit here and say, absolutely void the contract or not void the contract, because for me it's really difficult. I think this statute is horrible in my opinion. What I will say is, if you determine to void the contract tonight, if that's where you're headed, this exception in the statute allows an RFP to go out immediately. It does not preclude Ms. Gleason from submitting on an RFP. It does not make her wait 6 months. An RFP essentially is an exception to the word contract in this statute, so it does not apply to a former employee. Hope I'm making sense here. So that is an option. Whether or not at that point Danette even is interested in doing the RFP, that's up to her. That's one option. Another option is you don't void the contract and you deal with any ramifications that come as a result of that, which again, we don't know. I don't envy you. Your jobs are not easy, but I would love to tell you that we had a unanimous yes, void the contract, or a unanimous no, don't void the contract. We didn't have that. And fishing it to outside counsel, I thought I would get a really solid answer that matched maybe with one of our answers. Her answer was also kind of a hybrid of everybody else's. So we have a mixed bag of opinions. Is this in violation of this statute? I really don't know. That's my best answer.
Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I want to call on Danette again. Do you have any rebut to this, Danette? If you do, please step up. Will we listen here? Okay.
Commissioner Reardon, Danette Gleason.
Yeah. Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon, I think County Attorney Fyfie had pointed out that her analogy cannot actually stand up in a court of law. You can't, because of statutory context, I think that's the lingo I've been told and heard. You don't get to put commas in. You don't get to talk about, I even put in your handout, in your packet, there's a packet that I highlighted in blue that said, you don't get to say contract, comma, and you don't get to put in front of employer, former. You don't get to do that. You have to read the definitions. You have to read the face value of the law. The next step is what I did. I went and got the legislative intent. I looked at the legislative intent, and I analyzed that. I provided the summaries of each one of them to you tonight. I'm not an attorney, but I did it based on what I was given by my attorneys to present to you. I do believe that there's a lot of gray area in it. I do believe that that direct involvement is related to a contract. I fear, not only for myself, but a bunch of current employees, if you go down the broad interpretation of direct involvement and you don't follow that, and it's just meaning if you're involved in the work, you're directly involved, and you don't talk about a contract of having that work done. Because we have several employees at Butte-Silver Bow. They're involved today, like I said, directly involved in work they do today. And granted, we have not had statements from them yet on work. We've been working on policy changes, or the chief executive and the HR department, the finance and budget department, the county attorney's office. That's why you had that policy updated to you back in October. One of the policies that's coming out is to report if you have an outside job. We were thinking that that was more relative to, did it make a conflict of interest to your current employment? Were you leaving work early because you had another outside job? When in reality, now to this statute, it makes a point to it's more intense in this statute if you have outside employment and what does it look like. And if you have a company and you're doing business with Butte-Silver Bow and you have more than a minority interest in the company and you're doing work for Butte-Silver Bow. There's a whole range of things that this opens up to. I just say I want to be treated fairly like everyone else. I do not want to be singled out. That's all I ask. So if you take this definition and you use it and you void the contract based on the Chief Executive Gallagher, that his letter that talks about what this means in the letter and what their outside legal opinion, I'm sure, gave him to write in his letter, like my attorneys gave to me in my letter, then I think that you're making a broad interpretation, and you have that right to do that, but you have to make that applicable to everyone. And so I just caution you of that. I do think that you're in a tough position. I never want to put you in that tough position. I asked my legal counsel to not come with me tonight. I did not want her here because I didn't want to put any pressures that I was doing anything legal or making anything. I was only using my retained legal counsel to evaluate and help me evaluate. I also had the luxury, like Ms. Fyfie, to go around to other friends and whatnot that are attorneys or former attorneys and ask the same questions of them. And there's a lot of gray and ambiguity in it. I'm just saying the action you take tonight, I'm asking that you also make sure that that's applicable to everyone and followed across. And I highly encourage you to go back and immediately address the Code of Ethics and the municipal code, the policy and the municipal code on the Code of Ethics. I don't know if I helped you answer a lot of questions. This is as tough for me as it is for you. So, and it's super tough on my family. So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Callahan.
County Attorney Fyfie, I got a question for you. She's brought it to our attention, Ms. Gleason, that we shouldn't be singling her out. We've got numerous employees that moonlight with companies that do business with Butte-Silver Bow. Would that be in the same category?
County Attorney Fyfie.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Callahan, I guess to answer that question, I'd need to know more specifically the position that somebody holds with Butte-Silver Bow, and then the position that somebody is holding with a majority interest in a business or other employment. It's a little difficult with hypotheticals to be able to answer that.
It isn't just an employee, it has to be a majority interest, is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily, but there does have to be some direct relation. And I would say a large part of the work, or a substantial portion of that work, would potentially overlap to be considered to be directly involved. Again, without having like, Johnny does job A for Butte-Silver Bow, and on the side, he has a business that also does this work, but he does that on his own time. Is that a conflict? I guess I would need, it's just hard to answer that question with a hypothetical without knowing. I'm assuming if Ms. Gleason is referring to employees that have side jobs that are similar, there must be some. I don't know who they are.
Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan.
One more scenario. We've got employees that have retired from departments and got hired in other departments. Would that be the same as Ms. Gleason's?
I think, again, without knowing what their job A was, to move to job B, and how that employment was procured, and the relation between the two positions, without knowing all of those elements, it's also hard to determine whether or not that would be in violation of this statute. And again, any kind of scenario we have is going to be, if we're going to then apply it to this statute, it's going to be up to the interpretation of how you interpret the statute. So unfortunately, you have an outside counsel opinion that says void. You know, I revealed to you tonight that we had a hybrid of opinions within our office that could potentially say voiding is appropriate and voiding is not appropriate. And so I would imagine if you gave me an exact scenario, it would be difficult to determine that. Also, we would first have to determine, does this statute apply, and does it apply in the way that would lean towards voiding Danette's contract tonight? If we're gonna apply the statute like that, then you're gonna get one answer with your scenario. If we determine the statute does not apply to void her contract tonight, then you're gonna get a different answer with that scenario. So it really depends on how you determine the statute is going to apply.
Thanks, County Attorney Fyvie. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. If this is denied and you do go out for an RFP, what would that look like? Have you thought about this yet? You know, are you going to have a few people put together, or what were you thinking?
Commissioner Sorge, I believe that we would want to work with the departments that are affected and do an RFP that directly correlates with the skills and the trainings that go on here. And there may be multiple RFPs to do that. And the one thing that I think that it would be the scope of work type thing would be maybe adjusted. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Would council have a representative on something like that, considering the budget and all of that falls under our purview?
We absolutely could have a representative on there. So, and I think probably it'd be appropriate from somebody from Finance and Budget to be on that. So, Commissioner Callahan, I will say that, you know, there are some scenarios where you've seen some people that have gone from one position to another. A lot of times retirements mandate different requirements around that. So the jobs that they do are different sometimes, and they go into different retirements. And sometimes the unions and the state retirement system requires things where they have to sit out for a certain amount of days and stuff. But I don't know if what the scenario we're talking about really applies to those, because they're not, most of them are not doing the same job or doing the same skills. But there are some that have, for sure. Commissioner Mankins.
So when we're looking at, thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. So when we're looking at this training session, and we're thinking about a year's time or however long, if this isn't voided, is a year's time enough time to train? Or when is enough time to train, or how much training is involved in this in order for these different departments to be, for lack of a better term, up to par? I mean, that's, it's a loaded question, but, and if, as we all know, Danette is so valuable, but is she, there's only one of her. Is she going to be able to train all of this as much as she does within the business, that she's gonna have to go and do these other positions to train to make sure they're up to par in a year's time for the next fiscal year?
Commissioner Mankins, I think that's hard to speak to that. The one thing I do know is that the scope of work that she has is not having to deal with personnel issues and dealing with having to do different things like that, whereas a director is doing the day-to-day personnel issues and things like that. So does that open her up to be able to do more trainings and things that would pull her away on other things? She probably would have more ability to do more training with the individuals that are needed here, I would say. I know that as a director, there's many things that you're pulled into, lots of other meetings with multiple other departments that take you away, and especially in that role, to other departments that now wouldn't require that. It would specifically be towards the people that she's working directly with and the trainings that she's working on. Yeah.
So
Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Chief Executive. So shouldn't the RFP be a consulting position of training after? I mean, this is where it seems like we're at. If that's where we have to get people up to where they need to be, that's, the tough question here.
Commissioner Mankins, I think we would have to look at that scope of work of what we need to build this on and really develop it for what we need within the individual departments, and see what that scope of work would need to be. But there's not many of these that don't need to be there, so, or none. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Just a couple quick comments, and then I'm going to ask for a favor from somebody or anyone. But anyway, just looking at the contract, the max value is $150 per hour, max hours of 120 per month. Per year, that's 216,000. So we're complaining about 230,000 for a study earlier. So just to compare apples to apples a little bit. The thing is that we can go back and forth on this all day long. I think the best and safest and most prudent way of moving forward would be to, like I stated earlier, get rid of this contract and go another route on it that would be legal safe. The other comment, Danette brought up some very valid points why we need to have strong people in this position, and I really appreciate all the work that she has done over the years to increase her bond rating and saved us hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that 216 is a bargain in that vein. And I really hope that her predecessors and other people in the office will work and do as good a job and be as diligent as she was. But at this point, there's two options really that we have, to kill this contract or to approve this contract. So I would ask that somebody make a motion to do one or the other. I already made a motion that I felt was right. It died for lack of second. it sounds like I'll ask county attorney because she's getting picked on a little bit. Can I still make that same motion, or am I barred from doing so?
County Attorney 5E.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Anderson, I believe somebody else has to make a motion at this point.
Commissioner Fortune.
Chief Executive, I'll make a motion to approve the contract as is.
The contract is already approved,
Okay.
so I don't think we need to do that.
I guess my motion is to deny your authorization to terminate the contract.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to deny the termination of the contract, or you could just probably note and place on file, because no action would need to be taken. I mean, we could vote to deny it. Yeah, deny. So we'll put deny. Okay, okay.
Bill's motion could die because there wasn't a second.
His died, there was a second on Justin's.
Yeah, mine's dead, so we're
Before
voting
the
on
motion,
Justin's.
It could just die on his motion because there wasn't a second.
No,
No,
we need to vote on it.
no, you
Mine
can't.
just means no action.
His is no action because it was never seconded, so you can't take action on it. So we do have a motion and a second to deny my
Note in place on file.
communication. So is there anything else on the question? Okay, could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
That should be a no.
Okay.
So 8 yea, 1 nay.
8 yea, 1 nay. Motion passes to deny the communication. Okay. All right, let's move on. Going to the last communication that we have is communication number 21, or item number 21, communication number 2024-233 to Nick Leeson, Accounting and Finance Reporting Service, requesting Council of Commissioners to not terminate her contract that was approved on the April 3rd, 2024. Instead, enter into a contract pursuant to Section 2-2-201, which allows professional service agreements to be entered into based upon competitive procurement procedures conducted after her date of termination. So we probably need to, Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. We just basically did approve this contract, and so there's no reason to do anything with this communication. So at this time, I would make a motion to note and place on file.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea, 0 nay.
9 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Nay, motion passes. Okay, moving on to
Judiciary items.
what's that? Do we need to take a quick break? Does anyone need a
Please.
break? Okay, let's take a, do you need a dehydration break?
Yes. Go ahead. You can do it without me.
Okay, we can go on without them? We'll go on. So Section 2, ordinances, resolutions introduced to judiciary, just note those. Section 3, ordinances, resolution for final reading. We have 3 of them. First one's resolution number 2024-14. Clerk, please read the caption. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I move to place Council Resolution number 2024-14 on and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Anyone want a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, placing resolution number 2024-14 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote. He gave a thumbs up too, so 9.
9 yea, 0 nay.
9 yeas, 0 nay. 9 yeas, 0 nay. Motion passes. Moving on to resolution number 2024-16. Clerk, please read the caption.
A resolution authorizing the submission of an application with the Montana Board of Investments for an infrastructure loan by the city and the county of Butte-Silver Bow and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I move to place resolution number 2024-16 in past having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, placing resolution number 2024-16 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea, 0 nay.
9 yeas, 0 nay. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 3, resolution number 2024-21. Clerk, please read the caption.
A resolution directing the Butte-Silver Bow Land Records Department to mail notice of pending tax deed issuance to all persons considered interested parties for each property for which there has been issued a tax lien certificate in accordance with the provisions of section 15-18-212 MCA, further directing the treasurer to issue a tax deed for those parcels of property where there has been issued a tax lien certificate and the expiration date of the redemption period has expired and required payment has not been made, and providing an effective date herein.
Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. At this time, I move to place resolution number 2024-21 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have resolution number 2024-21 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea, 0 nay.
9 yeas, 0 nay. 9 yeas, 0 nay. Motion passes. Moving on to calendar and other meeting events. Please note all the dates and times of those meetings. And next we'll move on to any public comment on any item not on the agenda tonight. If you'd like to speak on any item not on the agenda, please come forward, state your name, address, and what you'd like to speak about. Seeing, what do we?
What communication? I live on Castlemore Canyon Road. Oh, so communication. 4 years ago, they abruptly quit.
So we had an issue with, no, it's just that your communication did not get segregated to communicate on it, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Mrs. Brazotti, it'll be referred to the Public Works Committee, at which point you can come up and to the Public Works subcommittee meeting, and you can share your concerns, and they will discuss it there, and then it'll eventually come back to. That will be next week, I believe, at 6:30.
6:30.
Next Wednesday at 6:30, right there.
So it's 6:30. I think, so I'm not sure who told you, it was on the agenda, but we needed to have a commissioner segregate it so it would get talked about. But it is going to the Public Works Committee at 6:30 next week to be discussed there, and then it'll come out of there and be discussed by the full council later that night. Okay, thank you. I'll take a motion to, Commissioner Sorge.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Just FYI, I'm going to be on vacation next week, so I won't be here.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Sorge.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by aye.
Aye.